All right. We are live. MythVision podcast, baby. It's early in the morning. I'm on the East Coast in the U.S. I have Hanny Silem. Is it Silem Selim? How do I pronounce it properly?
Salim.
Okay. How are you doing, my brother?
Not too bad. It's almost 2:30 a.m. in the morning in Melbourne, Australia. Nice, cool night. So looking forward to this chat for sure.
Hey, I got to give shout out Zagros in the house. Of course, that's the label they're going to give you or me if they're like extreme fundamentalists. But thank you for being here. Michael Caruso, myth points, please. You can have some myth points, my friend. You can have them. And Friendly Muslim, myth point. He does them here, third place. Yes, yes, yes. And look, I don't turn away my fourth place, people. So, Robert, welcome. Melody, it's great to see you. Everybody in the chat, Neophyte One, Baron. I will eventually open up to have calls if you're interested in like coming and challenging or giving a high five to Hanny towards the end. I'd like to have Muslim callers, but we'll allow this show to get to that point. We'll have a lot more viewers by the time we get there. So it'll just be interesting to hear what you have to present. But before we do, I must plug our dear guest, Hanny. He has a YouTube channel, Critical Faculty, and he has interviewed some of the top scientists. And tell us about your channel a little.
Well, it stems from my view about religion. I wanted to tackle religion slightly differently. I'm not an enemy of religion. I understand religion in the context of this was the type of epistemology that people had access to at the time. I just don't think it's good anymore. It's served its purpose, and I think we need to evolve it into something completely different. So my tackle is of angle of empathy. I understand what people need to achieve. I understand that transition takes a while. But if the claims are going to be accurate, especially if there are scientific claims within the Quran, and I'm an avid lover of science. I'm interested in all things science, from biology to cosmology. I focus so much in that area, and today's obviously show is about that, is comparing certain claims and how they were understood at the time with today's knowledge, scientific knowledge, to be precise.
That's going to be fun, especially you're the big science guy. You love getting into science and diving deep. So I hope people will go subscribe. I did pin your YouTube channel at the top of the comment section, and it is in the description. So let's get it. Next thing I want to talk about is he has, for those who want to support what he's doing, a Patreon. And this is a way of obviously funding so he can keep interviewing some of the academics. Let me tell you firsthand, I say this all the time. Most people don't even realize this. Every super chat, every Patreon member, all of this stuff that looks like, oh, this is just going into the pocket. And I am investing into academics that come on the channel. I pay scholars, and there's some scholars, I won't name names, where it is literally $500 just to get them on for one episode, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is just the way the cookie crumbles. It's the way the world spins. And to get some of these names on there, that's just how, if you want a good show and you want to bring on certain people, you don't have to bring them on. You don't need them if you don't want to. But I say that to say, this is what we do. And so you are spending your own hard-earned money in investing in many of these academics that you have on your channel. So I wanted to plug your Patreon.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just to put this in context, Brian Greene, the cosmologist, is coming to Melbourne, Australia, and to go and see him on stage, you have to fork out about $300 or $400. And in today's world, to be able to sit in your pajamas on the couch and sipping some coffee and interacting with academics online, the comforts of your living area, and just chatting and asking a question for spending $5 or $10. That is fantastic, and to be able to do that these days.
Yeah, and someone mentioned Dr. Bart Ehrman. It's more than that, actually.
I know.
He's actually the most expensive academic I've had on the channel, actually.
And
if it weren't for crowdfunding, I would not have ever interviewed him, just being honest. I couldn't. Yeah. I'd read his books and commentate on them or have others talk with me on it. But I am very privileged to be able to have him be able to join me and stuff because we have great fans. So, Hanny, thank you so much for joining us. I finally will mention, if I will, my Patreon. I have a video that's coming out soon on the minimal facts, there's a minimal facts of Christianity. I created a category that I'm hoping starts to get the coin phrase, and that myth visionaries will go out there and start sharing it in the comment sections whenever they're watching videos, whether it be a skeptic channel, Christian channel, or whatnot. And I want to talk about the minimal doubts argument. I really want to heighten the doubt, even the doubt within the text of the Bible itself, specifically the New Testament, when it comes to the resurrection of Jesus. So I've written an article that might find its way on Bart Ehrman's blog. It may not. It doesn't matter to me. It's going to be on these things. So anyway, enough about me. Enough about that. We're talking about scientific facts in the Quran, and I figure I'd open up with this article that actually was told to me to look at by David Wood and Michael Jones. And of course, I was on with Apostate Prophet, and there's this Wall Street Journal. And on that Wall Street Journal, it talks about Western scholars play key role in touting science of the Quran. And I think there's a man named, they call him Mr. Zindani, who was actually friends with bin Laden before I think all the chaos happened with 9/11, etc. But he was friends with bin Laden. I did not know this, and neither did the scientist who went over there. But they rolled out the red carpet, had them bring their families, gave them crystal clocks and all of these things, and said, look, you can bring your science. You can be critical all you want. This is what they leveraged them with. And oh, okay, I could just come and bring science. I don't have anything to worry about. And as soon as they're sitting in the seat, Henny, it's all right, here's what we're going to do. Open up the Quran, and they're going to go, I'm going to read you a verse, and you're going to tell me how this fits into the science type of thing. And it was like a forced cornering. And some of the academics tried to resist, right? They legitimately were no. And even if he did know that, he could have found that out from sailors, or he could have found that out from oral tradition or whatever. And some of the academics just, I don't know, when you're pressured in a corner by an apologist, you kind of want to
I'm trying to imagine the situation where you're in Saudi Arabia, you're a scientist sitting around, and there are two large men behind you with swords.
Or guns. Yeah. Yeah, it says what you says is say, honey, we're getting out of here. Don't worry. No, but I think many of them complimented and said the guy was a really wonderful, nice gentleman, but they were giving them so many gifts and just loving them, and they were filming the whole time. So you're not going to be contentious and aggressively resistant to the ideas being put in front of you. Well, many of these scientists went out and said, are you kidding? They really duped me into this one. And now it's being spread. The name of this kind of version of evidence, they call it, just so I have a proper name, they have a specific name, Bacchaliism. Let me actually.
Oh, Bacchaliism. Yeah, that's the era. This is the guy who started the whole thing.
Okay.
Which is basically it started with him going to Saudi Arabia, and there was a huge era of trying to emphasize scientific. They call them sometimes facts, sometimes they call them miracles in the Quran or references. And a barrage of scientists then started going to King Saud and King Fahd universities in Saudi Arabia, and coincided with an Egyptian program called Faith and Science, led by Dr. Mustafa Mahmoud, who would have a 45 minutes episode in Egypt. Everybody in Egypt used to wait for him. And he would try to link science and faith in a very twisted way. And if you don't know anything about science, you think, wow, I'm vindicated. My faith is completely confirmed by the recent findings of science. And obviously, nobody read anything outside of the Quran anyway, so they wouldn't know better.
I look forward to us getting into the data here. I really want to type this out here real quick so that everybody knows right now. This is how I roll, bro. You know me. Okay. Please go subscribe to Holy Humanist.
Oh yeah.
Please go subscribe. She's kicking butt. I had to post it, right? So people can go and subscribe. If you're watching this at any point after this live or during this live, please go subscribe to her. She needs all the love she can get, just like we all need it, right? Especially when we're doing things that are controversial. So go show her some love. Thank you. She says, I'm so pumped for this. Laugh out loud. It will be sheer entertainment and so satisfying for the debunking to begin. Thank you for doing this. So much love and kudos. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I just hope people will go and show her some love for that. Thank you.
She's fantastic. We're going to do some work in May together anyway. Yeah. She's brilliant.
She is. I had to make this long drawn out because there's a lot more behind scientific fact, debunking in the Quran. There's a whole apologetic, and it's become so popular that there's even people on TV over in some of these more predominantly Islamic countries that are pushing and spouting these things, which is no wonder so many people in my chat that do show up to defend the Quran are trying to start with scientific fact this, scientific fact that. It's become a thing. So would you like to share your screen and start?
Well, before I start, I want to just have a precursor, and I want to have a background to this. Not all Muslims subscribe to this sort of scientific saga. Some very reasonable people of the faith, they understand that their beliefs is predicated on unjustified true belief. They don't need to be justification for it. They don't need scientific miracles for it. They understand that this is a matter of faith, and rightly so. And I actually have lots of respect for these type of people. They don't try to twist the word so much. They say, look, I believe it. It makes me comfortable. It makes me a better human being. Leave me alone. Right. I have lots of respect for these people. There are other people who would need science. And this will lead me to the very reason why we're having this chat in the first place. The very reason why we're having this chat in the first place is because God has chosen a certain way to convey his message to the world. He's always chosen to have a single individual somewhere on a mountain, inside a cave, inside someone's head, and whisper to them the truth and ask them to convince everybody else. Well, he could have done that to everybody. He's almighty, he's all-powerful. He could have downloaded in our thoughts, just like Satan can do, speaks to you directly without having to have a translator or interpreter in between. So his way of conveying his one true word has led to people asking for evidence.
Right. And
some of the evidence is okay, tell me something we didn't know before. And there are claims in the Quran that there are certain revelation a human wouldn't know. Only God would have known at the time. It was not a knowledge prevailed at the time. And unfortunately, 90% of the miracle claims or the scientific facts claims fall on their faces, just on the back of that particular argumentation.
That's why I actually do I did a short recently. If I might tease our audience with it, why not? I mean, just to get them real quick. Okay. When you have revelation, private revelation like this, claiming that it's from a specific guy, man, you have to be really somehow convinced by the message, the people who are telling you this, somehow that whatever they said helped you. You know, there are plenty of messages out there that help people with living their lives and whatnot. But this was the question that I had in particular. And I'll go ahead and play this. Now that I've recently taken interest in Islam and the history of the Quran, et cetera, I have some people who have criticisms. Why are you defending Christianity? When I point out the simple fact that in the Quran, it talks about how God made people believe, made it look like Jesus was actually crucified when he really wasn't. Not all Muslims believe that's the proper interpretation. However, in 2 Thessalonians 11, the Muslims will quote from the New Testament to point out, look, for this reason, God sends them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie, and so that all will be condemned who have not believed the truth, but have delighted in wickedness. My question is, if your God is willing to have people believe in a lie or send them a lie, let's say Christianity was all a lie and that everyone who's a Christian is really blind and they're following a lie, therefore they're going to be condemned and damned by your God. How do you know you're not being tricked? How do you know your God's not playing a trick? If he's able to do that with that many human beings on planet Earth, how do you know you're not also being duped into the same thing? So I made that little, why not, you know, let it, like, how do you know? How do you know if your God's willing to make most people on planet Earth? And this is me as a Calvinist. I was a Calvinist Christian. Like, that's exactly what the Bible taught to me, was that very few find the path of heaven. everyone else is damned. Okay. Like, how can I know that that's true? If he's willing to cook most of the human race in an everlasting post-mortem
Well,
eternity.
Derek, there is an explicit verse in the Quran. It says, "And they deceive, and God deceives, and He is the best of the deceivers." So I mean, it's explicit. He can do that if he wants to.
So how do you know you're not being deceived is the question. And it's not, I don't have enough proof to say, oh, I know you are. I'm saying, like, we don't have critical faculties naturally. And that's the name of your YouTube channel. So I just wanted to show that to get everybody on board. We do have a super chat real quick before we get into any of the content you're going to show. Religion
Sure.
has a fine print. Mind your mind, or your mind is mine. Morpheus, that's a wonderful phrase. Thank you so much for the super chat. Good to see you, Mr. Morpheus. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's so true. Mind your mind, or your mind is mine. That's exactly right.
That should be trademarked. I love that quote.
Right? It really is. Thank you so much again for the support. Let's get into these scientific facts and see if the Quran supports them.
Sure. So we were going to, I've got 13, but I don't think we can cover them in one area, especially we're going to take some calls. So I've decided that we're going to go for 6 today, the 6 meteor ones. And I'm going to start sharing the information here.
And welcome everybody to the chat. Brother Ben, Rayashima, Scholar Vid, Carl, Soapy Con. Everybody, thank you. All right, here we go. It's on like Donkey Kong.
Right. This is the sort of the part one, so I'm going to probably split it into 2 parts. Covering 6 today, and I am going to start with the criteria. What is it? What is a miracle? Because for me, they don't really qualify as miracles because they're not suspension of natural order or natural laws. To me, they're more like prophecies. So I never understood why they call them miracles in the Quran, because all what they're trying to do is trying to tell you, well, God has knowledge that you don't have of something to come or something to be revealed or discovered later on, and therefore it's more for me. Is more of a prophecy rather than a miracle, because you are discovering a scientific fact, this sort of explained by natural order, and therefore they shouldn't be falling under a miracle in the first place. You're just unveiling a natural order that you did not understand or know about to begin with. So for me, the claim of a miracle makes no sense to me whatsoever. More of a prophecy. However, if this is going to be a claimed prophecy as such, it needs to fall under 3 criteria. One, that knowledge never existed prior to the revelation. It's unambiguous, clear, and has no other possible meanings, and must be verifiable by science. You'll find that the vast majority will struggle with the very first premise. So we'll go to the first one, which is to do with embryology. Now, this is
let me share my screen, because let me tell you, it's going to come up full screen. Notice that? So this makes it better, a little bit bigger for everybody. All right, so you're going here, right?
Yeah, that's the one. So this is very straightforward. The claim that the Quran has only the source to understand these things about the development of the fetus within the womb, and the development of the cartilages and the flesh and things like that, they were known centuries before, and these are multiple other sources from different areas. The Shusharuta in India. This guy was the godfather of medicine in India. Hippocrates in Greece. Aristotle. He's the godfather of embryology in Greece. Charaka in India. Again, he was a surgeon. And Galen in Greece, which is and he's highlighted in yellow because he's the closest. If you compare his writings to the Quran, it's exactly almost the same, including the inaccuracies because at the end of the day, it's actually scientifically inaccurate, because the Quran claims that the bones form first. You got a skeleton, and it gets covered by flesh, which is incorrect. Incorrect. The mesoderm and the things that give rise to the muscle tissues. There's no such thing as flesh in science. It's really muscle tissue that sort of develop into that sort of flesh tissues that we have later on, and so is the cartilages, which are the precursor of bones, of solid bones to be formed later on. These are simultaneously formed, so it's also incorrect scientifically. So it fails two criteria of the criteria we sort of stipulated to start with.
Real quick, just so we let our audience know that we got a good little point here. Someone brings up MythVision podcast. If miracle is the opposite of science, then scientific miracle sounds like a contradiction. While I would agree, the point they're trying to make, just so everybody understands properly, is they're acting like in the 6th, 7th century, if you will, the book knows science that it shouldn't know. So the miracle isn't is this something that happened that we like walking on water or a guy rising from the dead? This is like an anachronism of saying, how did you know that the frontal lobar cortex is where you have your dreams? And if you cut this certain, like this is stuff we only discovered more recently in the last few hundred years.
He's actually absolutely spot on. It's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a scientific miracle. That's why I call it prophecy. It's more fitting as a prophecy. It's not a miracle, because once you say it's a miracle, it means it's a suspension of the natural law, and science can only explain natural laws. So if it's unnatural to start with, it can't be scientific.
Yeah, I guess that's perfect. I mean, that fits exactly in. Correcting the point is that these are more like knowing about supposed, waves beneath the ocean, or like there's finding out science that we can actually validate today that they were making guesses on back in the ancient world the best they could, as if they got it actually correct. And this is somehow convincing those who are more evidentialist apologists going out there saying, my book is right. And how do you know? It says the tallest tower will one day. And look in Dubai. Don't you see the tallest tower? Like ways of confirming their prophecy to claim that their religion's true. And I won't be shocked one day if, and I say if because apostate prophet and other people have different opinions on this, if one day Islam becomes the #1 most populated religion in the world, I won't be shocked if that happens. The way that they function as a family, the way they want to populate, the way they want to grow and convince their children to follow in the same footsteps, etc. Christianity seems like it's becoming more open to, I'm not saying every Christian out there, but it's accepting more of reality that is in the scientific world around us. And I think people are starting to realize, like, what is religion's role in the world? It's not like it once was. So as far as I was concerned, they're probably going to make the claim, look, we're the #1 religion, the most fastest growing religion in the world. That's another thing they're going to probably use once they're the most populated. So.
And when you think about it, Derek, and if the criteria to be divine is to reveal information that was not available before, people like Isaac Newton and Einstein would have been prophets by now, because they've actually verifiably revealed information that we did not know before. Are they gods?
Yeah, or are they prophets and their message is true and what they believe is true? Good point. All right. Do I need to go to the next slide?
Yeah, please go ahead. That's another cosmological point. This is the one to do with water being the origin of everything. Again, this follows the criteria of prior knowledge. A lot of cultures, like the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Chinese, the Egyptians, have creation myths that state that water is the origin of everything. Even there are biblical, especially in Genesis, where the references to water is given rise to all animals came out of water.
The chaos is like literally water, and the creature in the older Mesopotamian myth, Tiamat, and then there was a creature before that, but specifically the Tiamat creature is a water creature. Like it's serpent reptilian type creature. So Leviathan,
Yeah.
Anyway,
Actually, I've jumped the gun here because the water was the first part of this verse. This verse speaks about what it's supposed to be a reference to the Big Bang cosmology. Yeah, which is the separation of heavens and earth. So some Muslims claim that this is reference to the Big Bang, where a cosmology right there. And obviously, if you read the Big Bang Theory, this has nothing to do with the Big Bang whatsoever. The Earth has emerged 9 billion years after the emergence of the universe. And there was no separation whatsoever. The Earth is just a debris of the cosmic debris that sort of was floating around and was gathered by gravity at some point. This is completely and utterly inaccurate scientifically. It's just like there's no way, if you've read the Big Bang Theory, that you can reconcile it with the Big Bang Theory. And then the second part, which is going to be in the next slide, which is the one about water.
All right.
Sorry, that's actually the one about the expanding universe. So
is it this one? Okay,
yeah,
I can go back.
Yeah.
I can go back to.
Yeah. So if you can go back to the previous one, please. So this one here in particular is no way that this is to do with cosmology. This is the other one. This is the expanding universe. This is the expansion of space-time. And there is a surah that talks about, and the Arabic here is quite important, because if you don't understand, if you're not a native Arabic speaker, you will not.
Hold on. There's audio issues. Let me make sure.
Sure.
That we're good. Everybody, is his audio working better? Sing us a tune, Hanny. I'm just kidding.
Can you hear me? Oh, do the Island Boys again?
All right, are we here? Let me know if everything's good. Everybody in the chat, say yes, or
can you hear us, guys? Can you hear us?
Sounds good to me, Carl said. I'm keeping an eye out as soon as someone comments to let us know. Seems good. Breaking up, someone said. Audio is fine. ScholarVid said. Both are cutting out. Looks good. Sounds good to me. Inquisitive mind. We are MythVision. Yes. Okay, cool. I think we're back.
Might have been just a small glitch. So this is to do with the expansion of the universe. Here the problem is with the Arabic word. If you are not a native Arabic speaker, you will not understand the subtle difference. This word, mosaun, does not mean somebody who is making the expansion or expanding. This is to do with ability. And this is reference to God has the might and the power to do certain things. The Arabic verb that should have been used for somebody who's expanding the universe to be lamuassaun, not lamusaun. Completely different. Even the interpretation at the time of the prophet, and at the time of like a couple of centuries after the prophet, all the interpretations were revolving around God's ability to do certain things. That's the might. Nothing to do with the expansion of the universe whatsoever. This is a very modern interpretation, and it's really capitalizing on certain similar words and scientific theories to say, hey, here we go, we found one. It looks like somebody's always digging in the Quran to find anything that they can latch on to point out to a scientific theory.
Can I ask one question here? And this makes me beg the question, right? We built the universe with great might, and we are certainly expanding it. I suspect obviously I imagine this is the angels with God or something, because by this time they're not talking about a divine council. Maybe I'm wrong.
This is more like the royal we kind of thing. It's almost like it's very similar to the Elohim situation, where it might be reference to multiple gods.
That's why I was mentioning the we in English. I can't read Arabic at all.
In Arabic, you can use the royal we. So this is like a king can use a royal we.
Okay.
Or a president,
Well, so that's exactly biblical too. The Bible.
Yeah, I know.
Let us make man in our own. And this is definitely a multiplicity of divine ones, if whatever you want to call them. So that's why I figured they'll probably say angels or something, but this is an issue. And the "we are certainly expanding it" thing in English, it reminds me of the Bible verse that just simply says God like rolls out the heavens or stretches out the heavens like a scroll. Like a scroll's typically there, and they'll like try to use this. Some apologists will go, see, the Bible knew that the expanding heavens. Yeah, with flat earth cosmology. I mean, come on, or dome, cosmology for the earth, and there's waters above the heavens and things. They have a completely old idea about the world. And so I just figured I'd throw that out there. I wonder if this is picking up on the idea of like,
but this is this is why the sort of the holy text is quite ambiguous, and it's quite lovely for you to pick up whatever you want. If you're monotheist, you're talking about the royal we. If you are a Christian Trinitarian, say, hey, this is a reference to the Trinity here when we talk about we. This is the three persons, especially if you're Mormon. There are three separate persons now. We're talking about creating the world or the universe as we speak. So this is how wonderful a long book could be, because you can pick and choose and you can explain it in the way you want it to be explained.
Thank you for that. Want me to move forward?
Yeah, sure.
I will get to everybody's super chats. Trust me, we won't be too long with the slides.
Yeah, this is recycled. This is not. I haven't come up with that. This has been circulating for a number of years now, and it's common knowledge. This is the water verse. So again, we've explained in Genesis 1:20, life emerged from water. So this is old. In the Old Testament, it's mentioned. Thales, the Greek philosopher, has actually said water is the nature of all things, and this is almost 6 centuries before the Common Era. Anaximander, also another philosopher, he was actually the one that was closest to biogenesis. He talked about not just water, but warm water mixed with earth and almost a bit of mud. And that is almost the common biogenesis hypothesis, saying that life, the inanimate, could have changed to animate, or from chemical to biochemical in these kind of conditions. So he was the closest, actually. So this, again, this was knowledge was floating around, nothing new. And if you're living in a desert and you pour some water and there's a plant, of course you're going to associate water with flourishing life. There's absolutely nothing mysterious about that.
Just so everybody knows, right here at the bottom beneath the blue are other sources that predate the Quran. So like when you're talking about, these various other places, especially here you have dates, for example, people will take consideration that like if it's in the air already, why is it miraculous? Even if there is factual accurate, I mean, people are observing the world around them. Like if we lived back then, we would look around and go, I wonder if this is true. You're observing the world around you. It doesn't really take a miracle or anything like that, or even prophecy to come up with some of these things. So.
Like like the stages of the fetus. One of the things. People used to abort. Abortions was something then. People used to lose their babies, and their surgeries used to be undertaken. So you could actually see physically a fetus in a certain time, and you can examine it, and you can see it through your own eyes. So why is this something that is hidden away from us? We've known that. Aristotle used to actually dissect fetuses, and so that was the sort of thing that was kind of not hidden from us at all. So I never understood why this is supposed to be a mysterious thing. We've known that long before.
Thank you. All right. Oh, and one more noticing, and we created from water every living. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, you'll see that quite a lot in the Quran. It's the royal we. It's obviously Islam is one of the strictest monotheist religions in the world. So they make a very, very strong case for it. But it's just the Arabic language would use the royal we quite a lot to show the magnificence of God. This is the Iron One, the famous Iron One. Again, this is an absolutely distortion of the phenomena. First of all, we've known that iron comes in meteors from out of space. I'll put a reference. Ancient Egyptians almost 2,500 BCE, called iron the metal of heaven, because that's how they found it. But actually, that is less than 1 or 2% of the amount of iron on Earth. Iron actually forms on Earth, and it's dated to about 1.8 billion years, and that's to do with certain species that started to use photosynthesis to release oxygen into the oceans. And this is how you get the rusting iron that start floating out, and this is how you can mine iron. But the vast majority of iron is actually started on Earth. And
I think that, and I could be mistaken here, but I did a cosmology show with a guy named Ben who like wrote a book. I think his dissertation thesis or his master thesis was on this topic of ancient cosmology in the Bible and in the ancient Near East, but in the Talmud and the rabbis, the Jerusalem Talmud, which is way before the Quran, also the Babylonian Talmud and others, there is this sense where the rabbis are imagining a solid heavens, like, and it's made of a certain rock of some type of element that might be iron, it might be something else. The point is like, it's been floating around. These ideas and have been around, nothing new. Like, and why make this a miracle? Why make this a prophecy? What is why? And I want to say this up front too, as you opened up, like, you're not against people who have a belief, but the people who typically fall for this are falling for a fundamentalist approach. And like, not all Muslims agree with any of this science in the Quran.
Yes.
You know?
True. And by the way, this we sent down, وَأَنزَلْنَا, the Arabic word here. Whenever you see that verb in that particular order, it means we send down from heaven, because this was the same word that talks about the food that was descending on the Jews when they asked for food. So it was food, clothing, cattle, would you believe it? Cattle from the sky, and other things. So this is a reference to God sending down as he lives up there in the skies, which actually defeats the omniscient situation. Sorry, the omnipresent situation. If he's everywhere, why is he sending just down? You know, if he's everywhere, it could be just coming from anywhere. But that's the very traditional way of thinking about God. He's up in the sky, you know, the old reference to God. But the omnipresence came a bit later, and obviously that's in conflict with somebody just residing in one place and looking down at you from heavens. So that doesn't mean anything. That means God is sort of gifting you these gifts. It doesn't mean necessarily it's come out of space. As I said, the vast majority of iron formed naturally on Earth and is part of Earth since 1 billion 8 years ago, and it's linked to oxygen.
So that was the issue the other night. I was on the show with Apostate Prophet, and we had people calling in, and they wanted to talk about how iron comes from heaven. How did they know? It must be a miracle, you know, that they're finding out. And he's like, so cattle come from heaven as well, because the same things being said. And literally, we're moving on to another topic. Like, didn't even want to see how that problem is. It's like you said, it's a gift. It's the idea of God gave you something, be thankful for what you have, kind of thing, rather than like, this is a secret code for science that's showing. So do cows live on the moon or on Mars and God brought them to Earth? What the heck? You know, like, where do you draw that line? And
look at them in that small reference underneath, 2,500 BCE. The Egyptians called it the metal of heaven. They knew about it.
What do we do, Hanny? What do we do? All right, moving on.
This is the mountains one, the infamous mountain ones as paperweight for Earth, so the Earth wouldn't just fly away. So this is funny because it's completely, again, another distortion of science, and it's the way it's understood that the mountains are there to anchor Earth, so earthquakes wouldn't happen. The problem is earthquakes do happen, and they kill a lot of people. I think in the last 20 years, probably they've killed about 2 million people just on earthquakes. So they do kill people. and they actually they are the byproduct. They are the reason why tectonic plates move and push the Earth up. So they were not installed to anchor and stabilize the Earth crust. That is absolutely ridiculous. It's the other way around. It's a byproduct. It's a consequence to the movement of tectonic plates, and as they meet and collide, they push up and they create mountains. And earthquakes still happen. So I don't understand why is this even sort of been talked about. It doesn't do what it's supposed to be doing according to the claim, and it's not factual. It's actually incorrect.
One thing that comes to mind too is these pillars. The idea that the mountains are pillars. It also makes me think of mountains are where gods were in the ancient world as well. And so on top of the pillars would be a throne, I suspect, the idea of God resting on a throne. I'm thinking, how would an ancient perceive the world and not think, how does this prove that factually the Bible or the Quran is actually accurate in this sense? Yeah, this is really interesting point that you're bringing up.
It's almost like, the old image of the world like a dome, and you needed two mountains at the far end of each of the two edges to sort of erect the sky and separate it from Earth. This is old image of Earth, and it's it was the knowledge at the time, but to claim this has come from God, it's ridiculous.
Thank you for that, Melody. Good point. We've got cows. Twister, the movie. God brought you cows down from heaven. All right. Yeah.
It'd be like cow-nadas instead of shark. What's the tornado shark one? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think we went through these were the ones that we went through just today. We didn't want to go too long because I wanted to allow people to call in today. I usually like to do that. It's fun to hear people with different opinions, whatnot. Let me get these super chats if that's all right with you.
Sure.
Go back up here, get some of these super chats. Thank you so much for all the super chats, the love. Once again, giving shout out to everybody before that I've mentioned. Holy Humanist is in the chat. Go subscribe to her. Mr. Morpheus, mind your mind, or your mind is mine. Quoting religion. DBR, thank you for the super sticker. I love seeing you in the chat, always coming in here. Stop scamming, man. As the masked Arab pointed out on his channel, the first 19 tafsirs, commentaries of the Quran, took the claim the sun sets in a muddy pool, literally. This is something that gets harped on by
That's indeed true. I mean, this is a sort of a very strange area, because there's one reference that the sun has an orbit, which is true. The sun orbits the galaxy, but at the same time, it has a starting point, an ending point, and the ending point is a muddy pool, which is it's a really funny one. You cannot get around that. It's just
right.
It's wrong. We know that that's not what happens. And it's problematic.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to allegorize, you can. People want to try to, but this is nothing new either. That's why I love studying the Greek myths and understanding why the philosophers wanted to reinterpret Homer, reinterpret all of their stories in light of more recent evidence that looks bad. By the time you get in the 2nd, 3rd century BC, and not the 8th century BC, they're already making justified excuses for, well, okay, he didn't really do that. Zeus didn't really come down and do that. This is what it meant, or whatever.
It's almost like it's a case of hindsight is always 2020. You go back and you're trying to say, oh, no, I think, God, that was so wise. They actually meant that. And you're trying to sort of reflect on your current experience to go back and say that this was an ancient wisdom. And how did they know that, sort of thing?
Right. It's quite interesting you're pointing this out, because it took, 1,400 years to discover some of these things. And they had no use or need. They didn't even matter for 1,400 years till science comes on the scene. Now this book is useful in these places. So now let's show you why this is relevant. If you're taking their point, everyone's in the dark for, all of this time, having no use for these facts that are scientific. And I would love to hear, this is how silly I think this is name a single actual scientist who opened the Quran and discovered scientific evidence, reading the Quran and going, you know, this book's got a point. I bet you if we investigate this surah, okay, we'll find out that this is actually scientifically evident. So, okay, yeah, holy crap, we discovered something we never knew. And no, that doesn't happen.
Well, but remember, Derek, we've set 3 criteria to start with, and every single claim so far failed all 3 criteria. First, there were knowledge that was prevalent. The very first slide.
Mm-hmm.
So that the knowledge existed. It's very ambiguous and not very clear, and have lots of possible meanings. And when you start verifying them using science, they all fail. They're not factual. They're inaccurate. They're incorrect. So they fail every single criteria.
Thank you for that. Comms thank you for the super sticker. Good to see you in the chat. She's a Patreon member of mine, and she actually sent me the clip of your friend on the scientific miracles that I was sending you yesterday. And I was like, this is an interesting video.
Hassan is brilliant. He's Egyptian English as well. I've known him for almost 20 years now. He's absolutely,
wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the video recommendation. I hope you're enjoying the video today. Stop Scamming Man, Quran 51:49, and all things we have created by pairs. Great point. There totally aren't creatures that reproduce asexually.
Yeah, not. There are lots of organisms. They don't have a female, and that's again an incorrect claim.
Yeah, all things we have created by pairs. So yeah, can you imagine at that time they didn't know that things reproduced without having to have a binary-ish sex for it to be the case? No. It's really interesting.
We spent so long in our evolution with asexual reproduction before we turn into sexual reproduction. So it's incredible.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stop Scamming Man. Most of all these claims can be traced back to a shill named Maurice Bacali. I think Bacali.
That's the guy you're referring to. That's the Arab.
And he's a Catholic physician who worked for the Saudi royal family and never even bothered pretending to convert.
Yeah, none of the scientists who were working in Saudi Arabia, some of them actually said, I think there was one Japanese guy who said that when you pray in front, the Islamic prayer in front of water, the water molecule starts to dance and do crazy stuff.
Wow.
But none of the, and he said this can never be from any source other than God. So all these claims, and not a single one converted to Islam. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, you would think the people who saw this and were like, "Whoa, this is evidence," would be like, "I'm convinced. Yeah. I'm a Muslim now, like this, or I'm convinced the Quran is true, or whatever." So
yeah, they probably say, "I'll take my $2 million and I'll stay an atheist. Thank you very much."
I'm kind of wondering too, though, if some were, because I've heard when I read the article, some were already Christians. A lot of this stuff, like I said, overlaps. The idea that the heavens were stretched out, God stretched out the heavens like a sheet or like a scroll. That's pretty vague. What are you trying to say? Like, this is evidence that it's actually an expanding universe, and he understood the cosmology that we're going to find out thousands of years down the road. Well, if you're already a Christian and you're a scientist in that respect, you already believe that. Just because the Quran validates that, you're just saying amen to something that maybe the Quran picked up from the Bible, or like it's already well known or understood in the day. So yeah, I mean, that might be another trick.
I mean, just to give you an idea, scientists would spend so long trying to perfect their equation, because their half an inch or an inch long equation must precisely describe the exact physical and natural phenomena. And the author of the universe is giving you like half a page of beautiful poetic language and doesn't hit the nail at all at any time. And a mere human comes and puts an equation so precise that it explains a phenomena like whatever physical phenomena you want to explain, and God miserably fails the test to try to describe it in articulate or precise way.
So now is where the fun comes in, if I may. I would love to have our friends who are Muslims who agree with this or disagree with it. I hope we get a caller who goes, Derek, I believe in the Quran. I believe in these things. I have faith. I believe that Muhammad is the prophet. But I disagree with the scientific approach people are trying to take. I also hope callers will reach out that do believe it and can challenge you or try to at least defend their view and why, you know? So are we ready for callers? Cool. All right, everybody, stay tuned. I always enjoy these. Some of the nicest people. I mean that. Like, I am so impressed with the behavior of most people who've called in the past. And in fact, many of the ex-Muslims who get a lot of hate out there in the YouTube world, they're like extremely impressed with how people come on and are like, wow, they're like very nice and they treated me very kindly. I think that's the best behavior someone can have to, you know, convince people of things. So, all right, let me put Muslims, please, or only Muslims, please. Just because someone's going to want to call in that's not.
I mean, Jared, this is serious business. I mean, this is what, you know, this is people's sort of soul and brains. They put a lot of effort in their faiths, and you don't want to come and sort of make a joke or make a cartoonish image of something so important to them. So I'm very, very mindful of being very respectful and very factual when there's no other way, really. I won't take this as a joke.
No, I know you don't. And I know you're very kind, but you also, you know, you're good, man. You're good. All right, let me see here. Let me pin this. By the way, I already pinned his YouTube channel to subscribe to it, but I'm going to replace the pinned message now with calling in. So let me get these super chats while we are waiting for a few callers. And I'm going to remove the slides that we had up. Move from studio. You want to remove your slides from being shared?
Sure.
I'll get these super chats here real quick. Stop scamming, man, in the hizzy. Appreciate the super chat, my friend. Most scientists with clips seemingly endorsing the science claims were, quote, mined. On the YouTube channel, This Is the Truth Uncut, some are interviewed on it. I need to check that out. I'd like to contact some of these, you know, scientists myself because you know more about that.
In the Hassan Radwan video, he has a link to somebody's channel who's already had interviews with those scientists.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you look back into that particular thing you sent me, it will have a link in the description, and it will say this is a description of a friend of his who has a YouTube channel who interviewed most of these scientists after the event. So that's significant.
So this is, I'm literally posting the YouTube in the link or in the chat for anybody who wants to actually go to it and check out some of the videos from the scientists that are interviewed on this topic that are going to tell you what happened and explain how they really didn't draw the conclusions. Thank you so much, Stop Scamming Man, for that. I just subscribed, so I will be checking that out at some point. Mr. Morpheus is back. Appreciate the super chat. I think he's saying, careful, see what happened to Rashad Khalifa trying to prove Quran miracles.
I am not familiar with who Rashad Khalifa is, but there, yeah, maybe if Morpheus can tell us a bit more, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I don't. Morpheus, man, message me, please. If there's a video or something or any like article, I'm interested. I want to look at it.
It's very trendy. It's very trendy because it's vogue. It's in fashion. It's science. Everybody likes science at the moment. So when you have science, you want people to, you want your faith to be reconciled with science.
Right. Who doesn't? Nobody likes to think their cosmology is outdated. But I know some Christians who actually are, I guess you'd say, more progressive. They accept modern science. They recognize that the Bible is loaded with ancient cosmology. It's not about that to them. So one more super chat, and then I'm going to take a caller. And then, of course, I'll take super chats between callers and stuff. Holy Humanist, again, go subscribe to our channel. Have to tear myself away from this for business law. We'll finish it tonight. Hanny, can we get a shout out for Gog and Magog who are yet to be found?
This is stuff. This is a kind of Lord of the Rings territory stuff, and Game of Thrones. Where there's a wall, built to stop certain people from invading the earth. This is crazy stuff. I mean, I hope that this is sort of understood in a metaphorical way, because the physical image of this, it's almost Game of Thrones territory. This is crazy. It's entertaining. Be a lovely movie, but I hope that most of the religious people don't take these things literally, because they are insane.
Thank you, Holy Humanist. I will be showing up at your next live stream to show you love as well. I really do appreciate you. Seriously, go subscribe to her channel. All right, let's take our first caller. And all I ask is that people are respectful. If for whatever reason it gets a little too long, I might cut us short so that we can move on to a different caller, because we already have more than one in the queue. All right, we'll start with AJ. Welcome to MythVision, AJ.
Thank you very much, sir, for taking me in. I have been watching your shows from a long time. Actually, I learned a lot. This show particularly, which I have been following science in Quran topic from quite long time. They claim each and every new scientific discovery that it was already there in the Quran. But what is the response from the scientific community? And also, if all the sciences that we are going to ever discover is already present in Quran, why no scientist is taking up Quran and doing research? At least in Islamic countries. Leave about other countries.
All right. So did you get his? I'm going to mute you because I got a lot of wind coming in, AJ, and then we'll have response. So did you get any of the questions that he was bringing up? You're muted.
My prediction: AJ is not a Muslim, and he's obviously challenging. You say, well, why are they getting away with it? Why aren't Muslim countries who think that science should be the way to lead into the future are not challenging the unscientific claims by the Quran? And my answer is very simple. Most of the Islamic countries are, unfortunately, don't have a very high regard for science. The education system is quite poor. Like things like evolution is not taught properly in the Arabic schools. Some are actually completely forbidden and they're not taught. And some are teaching them, but they would actually say at the end of the class, well, that's what the West believe, but we have our own theories. Right. It's almost like a competing theory, or they put a competing theory like the ID, intelligent design, or something like that.
Or like, what was the huge apologist guy? I remember seeing a clip where he's like, they call it a theory for a reason. And I'm thinking to myself, like, he was trying to say theory means it's like
Zakir
yes,
Naik.
Yeah, but he's a doctor. Like, so I'm thinking to myself, what the heck? But then again, in a different country, I don't know. They might just be very behind in terms of the scientific method, and I don't know.
They're very bad, but some are deliberately. Like some would actually know deliberately. You must know, being a doctor. I mean, that is a common knowledge. He would know that as a doctor, the difference between a scientific and a scientific theory and a scientific hypothesis. He must know the difference. Right. To give that answer, he's absolutely using the crowd's ignorance against them. I'm afraid there's no two ways about it.
Well, thank you so much for the call, AJ. I really appreciate that. I'm going to take our next caller. Thank you for calling in. All right. So we're going to move to our next one. I just shout out to Holy Humanist. She says, haha, Derek. Don't make me ban you, mister. No, but honestly, I appreciate you. Seriously, I appreciate you as well. I mean that. Like, we got to do another show where I have you back on again to talk about more. There's just so much I'm sure you have to say. So really, really, I hope you do come back on MythVision. All right. S. Abu, welcome to MythVision. How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm good. Thank you for calling in, my friend.
Great. So I don't know where to start. Many mistakes that Selim said about the so-called mistakes, scientific mistakes in the Quran.
Okay.
I guess he knows Arabic. Okay, so for instance, regarding cosmology, وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. لَمُوسِعُونَ is also a correct recitation. I don't know if he knows about skeletal Quran, the waw, you can add on it a fatha, which makes the word muwassi'un a correct recitation of the word. Okay, so and we expanded it. Is a correct narration or recitation of the word. Okay, Einstein was wrong about the expansion of the universe. He fought against it. For him, the universe was static and eternal, and it was his biggest regret and mistake of his life, not going with the evidence that Hubble discovered, which the universe was expanding. Okay.
Okay, so let's let Hanny and you both have a conversation. I appreciate you coming off with a good tone too. So
Yeah,
being critical of Hanny, but at the same time, I like the respect. So is there anything you'd like to respond back with that so far, Hanny?
So the adding certain different connotation for the word to change its meaning. Where all the interpreters of the Quran at the time of the Prophet and shortly after, all the most famous ones have all agreed that that word means somebody of a great might or great ability and has nothing to do with expansion whatsoever. Can you show me any tafsir or any interpretation that goes back to the older era, that shows that that word means expansion?
No, because I don't know by heart the hundreds of tafsir which were made in that time. But the Quran is also made. The Quran is a universal message, so its message is not to be discovered right away in the 6th century. Things that would be discovered later as a proof for later people, later sightings, later men and women who would read it late, for instance, in our time. We can discuss it, but there's also, for instance, rawasiya in the verse of the regarding the mountains. Rawasiya doesn't mean pillars. That doesn't mean pillars.
I've never claimed that there were pillars. I said my argument.
The translation that was underneath the verse. Rawasiya means stake.
Yeah, no, but mountains are not stake. No, I wasn't arguing the roots of the mountains. I was arguing the explanation that says mountains are to stabilize the earth crust, so earthquakes won't happen.
No, the verse doesn't say that. And tamida bikum doesn't mean that the earth will not shake. And tamida bikum. That does not mean it won't shake.
That actually that's what it means. So what does it mean then for you?
And tamid is to be ripped apart and slide apart.
Okay. Now let's stay with that understanding. Do mountains do that?
Yeah, mountains are. If you take a side view, if you make a cut, a gigantic cut on a mountain, you will see that it looks like a big nail, a big stake, which goes far deeper than its own height.
I understand that. I understand about the roots of the mountains, but what I'm trying to say, I'm asking you a question. You said it's not the shaking of the earth; it's stopping the earth from being ripped apart. So, are you saying that if there are no mountains, the earth would have been ripped apart?
In some points, yeah, definitively, because the weight of the mountains play a role, certainly.
I'm sorry,
that's in the stability of the crust.
That's not scientific. The mountains are a byproduct, the result of the tectonic plates moving. Because what you're trying to say is,
I agree with that. I know that. But the weight, also the weight of the mountain, the mountains are byproducts, but also by their own weight, they play a role in the stability of the.
That is scientific. That I can tell you that 100% sure that's scientifically incorrect. But it actually poses a more dangerous problem. It basically proposes that God wants ultimately to stabilize the earth. So he creates an earth that is not very stable, and then creates mountain in order to stabilize it. why couldn't God create a stable Earth to start with?
God created the Earth as you know that the Earth is a giant ball of liquid magma. See, so you have to have a solid crust which keeps it in its form. You see, so
Yes, but why do you need mountains? I'm arguing, why do you need mountains? If mountains are only there to stabilize the Earth, why not create a stable Earth to begin with?
Why, if you can remove the mountains, and then you will see what happens.
But I know, but yeah, what I'm trying to say, you're saying that God is not then Almighty, because God, the only way to have a stable Earth is to have mountains.
No, it's the only way we know, because we live on an Earth which has mountains, and it's stable that way. So we don't know any other.
But I can tell you, and please check this knowledge here, mountains have nothing to do with the stability of the Earth. They are byproducts. They are the reason the tectonic plates keep colliding and they keep clashing. And as they meet, they lift up the ground, creating mountains. They're nothing to do with the stability. They are the reason. They are byproduct. They are consequence to the colliding of the tectonic plates.
Yeah, that's.
So we disagree, and but my question is, Abu, if I may, are you in line with the whole scientific miracle claims? Because I know some Muslims that don't. They're like, no, this stuff is not, like, they don't accept this whole argument that they're trying to prove the Quran based on scientific evidence to say, oh, this is a miracle. Do you agree with the scientific stuff?
I disagree with that, because it's dangerous. Okay, because science evolves, and if, for instance, if in a time some Muslims claim to be that some verse coincides with a new scientific discovery, and then later that discovery is proven to be wrong, then they'll be like they be themselves wrong, and they proved the verse wrong. You see, so that's why
that's very sensible. Very sensible. I like that approach, because I don't mind at all somebody who is faithful. They belong to a religion. They have a belief and makes them feel good, and they're scientifically sound. They are going to contribute a lot to the world. There are a lot of scientists who work together. Like, I think there was a couple of a Muslim and Stephen Weinberg, Abdus Salam and Stephen Weinberg, have actually came up with an excellent paper. And the faith of each of the scientists have not stopped them from reaching scientific discoveries. So I would rather have somebody who's faithful and at the same time can separate faith from science, and when they do science properly. That's brilliant. If you have that stance, then I applaud you.
The Quran is not a scientific book. There are here and there some mentions about some scientific facts in the Quran, and that's the point of the video, I guess. But the Quran is a book about a way of life, you see, and a more ethical book.
But you see, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say that and then smuggle just before you leave that it has scientific facts.
It's dangerous not to take everything science take as a given. For instance, I disagree about your the current interpretation of the function of mountains. Maybe in 10 years it will change. Now you believe that the mountains are byproducts of crust colliding, but maybe in 20, 30, 40 years, scientists will discover something else, and then your theory would be obsolete.
So the correct stance then for any reasonable person for the lack of knowledge is we don't know. But the problem is those who don't know, they say, well, I've got a belief and I'm waiting for my belief to be vindicated and to be realized.
I wanted to match my book or whatever. Yeah. So it's not, this is a different approach. It's more of an honest one by saying, look, something might change. And when it does, we need to change with it. But if we have a book written in the 700s, let's say, or 600s, okay, 630s, and we're saying this is the capital T truth, everything must line up with this. And so when we find modern, let's say embryology, right? The claim that say there's a scientific claim, say some Muslims want to say this is a scientific claim on embryology, and they're dying on that hill. And we find out things that prove that that's not the case based on their interpretation of it, what are they going to do? Are they going to finally go, okay, hold on, I'm still going to believe in the Quran, but I'm going to stop acting like it's a science book? And these are just people. What if, look, here's if I were to pretend that I was a Muslim, this is my opinion. I would say that God spoke in the language of the time for the people of the time. He had no interest in explaining 1400 years into the future science to people in the 630s. So if any of this information was inaccurate based on what we know now, it doesn't matter, because the book that he gave to the people at the time, here was the message. And he's not giving them a science book. Nobody's arguing it's a science book. This is a faithful book. This is how to live your life righteously to God. That's the kind of message, and it's poetic. So if I were Muslim, I would stop pretending this is a science book that's going to prove science, just like young earth creationists and Bible-believing Christians want to argue and die on the hill. The earth is 7,000 years old, or we didn't evolve. They want the Bible to be a science book because the Bible does make cosmological claims. It does hint at things that modern science is saying that's not true. That's not true. So they want to bend things to keep their Bible true. But maybe God is speaking to them in the time where they only understood things the way the world was understood at the time. You see?
But as I said, the Quran is also made for all the people of all the time. So even for us today.
So let me ask you this. There's a super chat here. I just gotta, and I'm asking you a super chat because this is actually relevant. Mr. Morpheus says, Surah 14:4, we sent not a messenger except to teach in the language of his own people in order to make things clear to them. It's not a universal message. Stop it. What do you say to that?
إنا أرسلناك رحمة للعالمين وأرسلناك للناس كافة for all mankind. There are all the verses that said the messenger was sent for the whole mankind. While all the prophets, like Jesus, like Moses, they are local prophets who were sent to their own people, like Jesus for Israel, Moses also for Israel. See, and all the many in the Quran, in the Hadith, we have 110,000 messengers and prophets, which were sent all throughout the world, in Australia, in Asia, we don't know about. Okay, and Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, was sent as the last messenger for all mankind, and that's an interesting question, because Arabic is a fixed language. There is no other language on the earth right now as old as Arabic, or even close.
As old?
Yes.
Wow.
And this is a claim I can
This is exactly what the Jews say when I'm talking to them on Facebook about Hebrew, and it's not true.
It's not true.
This is look, I'm just saying as a friend, I'm being nice by telling you, you're not the only one who's saying this. The Jewish friends I have on Facebook argue that Hebrew is the oldest language, and it is true, and it's fixed, and like, I'm just being honest.
You can prove that Judaism, the Hebrew language was dead, and then
so, sorry to interrupt there. Just by a very quick Googling, it took me 2 seconds. The oldest living language that's still spoken to date is Tamil in India and Sri Lanka, and it is 5,000 years old.
You're saying Arabic is older than that?
Yeah.
And it's the same Arabic that was spoken in the Quran?
Yes.
So,
Salim, if you can read Arabic, if you read the Quran, you are reading the Quran which was revealed.
No, I know. That's 1400. I'm talking about a language that's 5,000 years old.
Yeah, but Tamil.
Tamil.
I don't know what's the history of those people.
But Sri Lanka, the Tamil Tigers, Sri Lanka and India.
Can you read Shakespeare as Shakespeare was written? Can you read Molière as Molière was written?
I can read Shakespeare. I can read Shakespeare in English. That's all right. If you learn it, you can understand it. Why not?
Today's English, not Shakespeare's days. You see what I mean?
So Abu, if I may, and I'm just reading your name on the thing, so forgive me if I'm not getting your name right. From what I understand, there are multiple readings of the Quran. And when I talk to Marai Van Putten, other linguistic experts, they talk about how in the Quraysh, if you will, tribe, the Quran is written in a particular tribal dialect, that it's not like there's multiple dialects when it comes to the Arabic language that is in the Quran and how it's being read in various Qurans that are being spread. So it's not like a single universal one-stop shop. There are various ways of reading this language, and it's not that simple.
I want to say something as well. A language that doesn't move with time, it's a bug and not a feature. It's a horrible, horrible curse. And that's why Arabic does not cope with the science. If I'm having a scientific episode in Arabic on my channel, I struggle. And I have to speak a lot of words in English because I cannot find an Arabic word for it. A language.
I disagree with that, because today we live in a time when the English language is the international.
Okay. Here is a challenge for you. What is the Arabic word for velocity?
Sur'a.
No, that's wrong. Velocity doesn't mean speed. Because velocity in physics has two things. It has speed and direction. Give me one Arabic word that gives you speed and direction.
Sur'a tijahiyya. I can
that's two words.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying.
Directional velocity is also correct in English. So.
No. There's no such velocity itself. It's one word that has the two meanings. So and that's.
Can you make a modern Arabic word that would potentially?
Yes, and that would be perfect. And that's how languages evolve.
Right.
That's how you keep a language alive. A language that sits in stones. It's being praised as a wonderful thing. It's a horrible thing. Languages are made. It's man-made thing. It's a tool for you to express your ideas and thoughts. And if your thoughts and ideas keep evolving, and your language is not a match, it dies. That's why you have living languages and dead languages. That's exactly what happens.
That's funny regarding velocity. Arabs don't need that word. You know what? Because they don't make airplanes and they don't make rockets, so they don't need velocity. See? So
that's a brilliant thing. So we're lagging behind in size. And okay, let's do donkeys then.
30 million words in Arabic in the Arabic language. That's 30 million words, and it has to be fixated. The language has to be fixed in time, because otherwise you will lose the meaning of the message, the original message. And
I think it is based. I think it is because of the religion that this is so important that we're sticking to it. And look, this is not unique. The same issue is in Orthodox Judaism pertaining to the Torah, that they need the Hebrew language. They need to know what this said, and they want to argue that the Masoretic is the most authentic and it's still the words of Moses, etc. So this is why I love diving into the Septuagint and finding alternative linguistic approaches that we find in the Dead Sea Scrolls when it comes to the Hebrew Bible, etc. So I think we hit a stalemate on this particular issue, because it seems that you would rather people not build rockets, become scientifically literate. And
no. What I say is that
if they're not able to speak it in their own language.
But if we built rockets, Arabs would perfectly accept the word velocity and turn it Arabic, and it will become velocity, for instance.
Oh, so they can add words to the language.
But the funny thing is,
algebra is an Arabic word, which the word has taken from Arabic. No problem.
In Egyptian, the word television, for example, we say télévision, which is like almost the French for television. We say téléphone. We use Latin-based words to complement our language that is not complete anymore. We don't have words for these things. But nobody says hatif, mate. I mean, come on. We all say telephone.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah.
Awesome.
There's also cultural invasion, if you wish, so that we have to use those words.
Look, mate, as long as we understand each other, then mission achieved. I guess that's what languages is for, really.
Yeah.
Thank you, Abu. Did you have another one?
Actually, I prepared your video, Derek. for today. I thought that would be with the apostate prophet, and I missed the last video with him, and I discovered Selim today. So nice to meet him. He's a nice guy too.
Yeah.
So I prepared like 21 scientific facts in the Quran. I don't know if he will tackle them, but I have them just here. If he, I can ask him if he.
If you want to, because I'm friends with Hani and we can do follow-up episodes. If you want to email them to me, that way I can give him, like, I can actually forward them to him, and then we can do another follow-up episode, and you can call back. Even we can have a little challenge conversation and see how
because we're going to be doing 13 altogether. We've done 6 today. We're going to do 7 some other day. Yeah. Maybe the 13 will cross over with some of the 21 anyway. So hopefully they will.
Yeah, our goal with the episode today, and I try to make this my goal, isn't to just do videos on presenting. I like to have these calls. And I really appreciate the manners that you've had coming on to the episode and like being a kind person and stuff and having these conversations. I really enjoy. So I want to thank you for that.
And Derek, please, if you have just 2 or 3 minutes, I would like to answer your question. In the beginning, you showed a video about yourself.
Yes.
Asking a question about Jesus. It's not the subject, but just quickly, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
You used in the video a verse from the Bible, from 2 Thessalonians, I think, which is a verse from Paul, okay?
Right.
Which is, I think it's forgery anyway. So let's say it's from Paul, and then you ask a question toward Muslims, but this is a biblical verse, not a verse from.
Can I tell you why I used that? Why I said that? I've seen more than one Muslim imam actually behind like a pulpit type thing, and he was quoting this passage. So that's why I said in the video, not all Muslims, I clarify, not all Muslims think this way, but the Muslims I've watched actually are using that as evidence to show what they're trying to say. And not all Muslims even interpret the surah passage that talks about was Jesus crucified or not. I know that. I've already had multiple Muslims come to me and go, I don't think that. So I get it. Not everybody thinks this interpretation is the correct way of looking at it. The person that made me want to do this initially was Paul Williams. Paul Williams does think the Quran is saying that Jesus wasn't really crucified and that God made it appear to his enemies that he was, but he really wasn't. And so
that's exactly what the Quran says, yeah.
So what I'm saying, I don't care if God meant this for only 5 people. My point in this is, if God meant to trick the evil ones, and there's let's say it's only 5 people, he inevitably caused billions of people to be tricked by this supposed trick, because billions of people believe he was crucified. So billions of people are deceived because God played a trick on a handful of evil people. This is my point in what I was trying to say initially. The follow-up episode that you just saw at the beginning of this episode was me saying, if he can trick that many people or cause that many people to be tricked, how do you know you're not wrong and being tricked? If there's a God out there that can do this to that many humans, Abu, you and me are human. Hani's human. We all are human. I like to think we all have an experience in this world we live in. If he can trick me right now, let's say I'm deceived, and millions or billions of humans are deceived because God did whatever he did. What if the people that are your opponents, let's say Christians, right? They think you're deceived. They think the enemy is tricking you. And what if it was their God that they thought was trying to keep it from you?
Yeah,
and Derek, and I just want to add some context. If you would say that the guys, this is a trick straight after, like a day or two, he waited 600 years to reveal that that wasn't him, really, guys. 600
Well, that's
years.
the thing I said in the initial video, Hani. It's not 600 years. There are Christian Gnostic texts that were found in Nag Hammadi already saying what the Quran is trying to tell you, but the Quran gives you a little bit of a different spin. Everything does a little different spin. So, of course, a Muslim's going to say, no, I didn't borrow from there. I didn't know this. But in these texts, it says that Jesus appeared like he was crucified. They thought they were killing the Christ, but really they weren't. It wasn't really him. It was a shadow, or it was whatever, or it was Simon of Cyrene. One of the texts said it was someone else, and it made it look like it was Jesus. And Jesus, and one of them's laughing, going, ha, 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 they think they're crucifying me. This is all hundreds of years before the Quran. So getting to the Quran and going, it knows the truth. Where are they getting this idea from? They will say from the angel Gabriel that revealed it to the prophet. I say, for me, because I don't believe that there's an angel secretly giving these messages, I am convinced that the puzzle that we're looking for is around in the world, and these ideas have been floating around, just like your presentation today, Hanny. All of these scientific claims, most ancient literature before the Quran has already made some of these statements.
That's a very interesting point here. I forgot to mention. We have to also get back to the context of regarding Jesus. Okay, Jesus is an innocent man accused of blasphemy, and a angry mob called the authorities to kill him. Okay, so this trick, called trick, was used to save an innocent man from an horrible death on a cross. So a trick can be beneficial and detrimental, if you can say that. So it was beneficial for Jesus because he was saved from an unjust death by God. But
now, this is coming from the Quran's perspective. You're trying to say 600 years later, right? Okay.
But from the other side, the guys who try to kill him, of course, they think, maybe we didn't kill him, because in the Quran there is a doubt. There is a notion of doubt that they are not sure that they actually killed him, because they look at him and it seems like him, but not exactly.
But you see, Abu, if you happen to be born Christian, he must be crucified. That's part of the plan. Yeah. He had to be. He had to be. He knew.
That's Paul. That's Paul, not gold.
No, that's Paul. All the Gospels and Paul. So yes, I'm tracking what you're saying, Abu. The entire New Testament teaches this idea that Jesus actually was crucified. This idea is there. So the whole Christian message wasn't created just by Paul. I mean, there is other reason to believe. There are other people believing Jesus died and was crucified. This is why Bart Ehrman, when he was interviewed by multiple people, me and even Apostate Prophet, who's like a big enemy he's an ex-Muslim that's like an enemy to Muslims. He points this out. The historical data points to that. What you find centuries later, and I'm not talking about 6 centuries, just a couple centuries later, you find these messages from Docetists and others who are saying he wasn't really crucified. Paul believes he really was. So does the rest of the New Testament Gospels. And I would even say some of the anti-Pauline literature in the New Testament. James is not a Pauline book. Matthew is most likely not Pauline. It's anti-Pauline. These are Gospels that are written that act like Jesus was crucified. So you'd have to trust your Quran to be the one that's true and deny any previous literature that accounts for this, unless you accept some of the Gnostic Nag Hammadi stuff that I was mentioning that does say it looked like Jesus was crucified, but he really wasn't. And their reason for saying that is different than the Quran's reason. Their reason is because he's God, or he's so divine that they couldn't crucify him. And of course, you would say, no, he's not God. He's just a prophet, which is closer, in my opinion, to the reality of a historical Jesus, if you take my approach. But yeah,
that's why North Africa, Asia, all of these people who were before Islam were monophysite Christians. Monophysite Christians are like monotheistic Christians who equate Jesus with God. They refused all the Chalcedonian councils and so on. They refused to separate Jesus and having him like lesser God. So they put Jesus and equate him with God. All of these people converted to Islam just in the 6th, 7th century, because they were monophysites. They were some kind of monotheistic people. Mm-hmm. And the message of Islam, which was pure monotheistic, right, and put Jesus back in his place as a human being, a prophet. All of these people converted very easily to Islam. See?
Right. And I have no quarrels with a kind of like a Ebionite, if there was, and there I like to go to the scholars to find out, like, was there really an Ebionite type of Christianity, a Jamesian type of Christianity that was like Torah observant, but also, respected Jesus and liked Jesus? Because a lot of the Jews didn't. But even in the Talmud, some Jews actually respected him. It depended on the rabbi. I do have another call.
One last thing. One last thing,
because we got one caller next, and I want to get some super chats out of the way.
Getting back to the context of Arabia in 6th century. Arabia, the very first book ever written in Arabic is the Quran. Before that, there's no book, nothing. The Arabs don't read, don't write. They have their culture. They don't read books. They don't have books. Okay.
Hold on. There are no writings at all. You're saying there's no inscriptions in Arabic.
There are writings. There are writings on rocks, on mountains. Like
so, you're saying there is that, but there's no books. Is what?
No. I'm going to make a counterclaim. There is something called al-Mu'allaqat, which is the poetry. The pre-Islamic poetry. They used to be
of course.
hung on Kaaba, and there used to be competitions in Okaz, the market of Okaz around the Mecca. So there were writings, and there were reading, and there were people who loved poetry and literature before the Quran.
Yeah, but no book like philosophy, history, or of our people. Just poetry. The Arabs adored.
What's that have to do with anything, though? Even if, let's say, they didn't write a science book.
It has to do because the Arabs don't read, and it's not like today we have Google. Like if I search for something, I type in Google. Back in this time, on that time, you just don't. Oh, I heard there are some Gnostic people in Egypt that they say that Jesus is some kind of a supernatural.
It's not a big claim.
It's desert.
Yeah.
What Abu is trying to build up here, correct me if I'm wrong, Abu, you're trying to suggest, because it was an oral culture mostly, I mean 99 probably 0.9% is an oral culture, that Muhammad couldn't have figured some of this stuff out unless he read it. But even in the Quran, right, the idea is that Angel Gabriel gave this information to him. But even in the Quran, I brought this up in one of my posts. There was the Muslim apologist, I can't remember his name, but it's something like that. I was pointing out that in the Quran, there are accusations that people are saying when we go to sleep at night or when we're in our house at the end of the day, he's being taught by people. So there are others who are teaching him. Now, I know that you wouldn't agree with that, but even the Quran says that this is going, or there are people who claim that that's what's going on. That makes more sense to me than he literally is getting divine revelation from an angel. That's just me. But I do the same. I'm critical like this as I am with Christianity and Judaism. I'm not picking on Islam. I do it to everyone. I'm very fair.
They were shocked by the amount of information suddenly arrived on him from nowhere. So he has to have a team of Jewish scholars hiding underneath his bed, teaching him. But the Talmud was finished in the Baghdadi area with the Abbasid. The Talmud was finished in that time. They were taken from the Islamic Sharia and added it to the Talmud. And the very first Arabic translation of the Talmud was in 2010. And it was so bad that they put it to the junk and had to start it again. So here it is. It's not like today we have Google, we have all the information available. In that time, Arabia is desert, as isolated from all the other cultures.
Yeah, that's I would disagree Romans. Right there. That right there is a red flag, because every single Abu, after this, I got to let you go because I do have a caller and I do have to get these. But I want to say every single academic, even the Muslim scholars that I'm in communication with on Twitter, say no. There were Christians and Jews that were down in the culture in Arabia through the trade routes. They were settled down there. We have churches from the 4th, 5th century BC or AD. So like a century or two before this, contemporaneous to the time the Quran's on the scene, there are Christian churches. We have archaeological evidence of churches that were turned into mosques that were actually in these areas at this time. So there is so much evidence, my friend, that I would just keep looking. I have to give you I want to thank you, honestly, though, for being such a kind caller. And I hope you please call back. This was wonderful.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Thank you.
I left my job earlier to be here. So
well, thank you for that. I hope you don't get fired. You're very kind, and I really appreciate you. So have a nice day, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
I just want to point out, Derek, you're absolutely spot on. Mecca was almost like Dubai of the ancient times.
Yeah, I don't know about comparing it to Dubai. I just know that argument of it's not possible that this stuff can be here is just not going to work. There are very, very kind Muslim friends that are mine, that are scholar friends. I plan on interviewing them when they will give me the opportunity and come on, that actually say that's not the case. So I'm like, okay, well, I mean, if they're willing to admit that, I don't see why that can't be part of it. Let me get through these super chats and then we'll take our next caller. Stop scamming, man. Thank you for the super chat. Rashad Khalida had novel ideas on the Quran. Some were thought heretical, and he was murdered in Arizona in the 90s. As you can see on YouTube, Balil Phillips, the massive Dawa CEO, praised the murder. That's sad. I don't know anything about it. Oh, you're muted, Henny.
This is the guy the first person was referring to, and we didn't not know much information about, Rashad Khalida, or Khalifa. I can't remember now. But that's his story, his background story. I never knew about him. He was pushing scientific miracles in the Quran, and he got murdered for it. or got murdered, full stop. It doesn't say if they were related.
Wow. Some thought they were heretical. He's murdered. Wow. Thank you for the super chat. Cam's Cass. I hope I'm saying it right. I could be messing your name up. I apologize. Read Yasser Qadi's views on Yajud and Majud. Am I saying that right? Yajud and Majud?
It depends on the dialect. So if you're from the area of North Africa or the Syria, Lebanon, it's Yajuj and Majuj. And if you're Egyptian like me, it's Yagug and Magug.
Okay. He was very much in pain explaining why this is not a miracle. I actually like some of his videos, to be honest with you. There's some videos he does. You could tell he's trying to be faithful to the tradition, and yet at the same time he's trying to be accurate. And I can appreciate a human who's trying to do that isn't forcing everything that way. So thank you again. And Mr. Morpheus, if I didn't say thank you for this super chat, thank you for that earlier. Moving forward to the next super chat here, and next we're going to be having on a caller. Just making sure I don't miss anybody here. Okay. Aaron Johnson, thank you for the super chat. Muslims try to claim the grammar and linguistic Arabic in the Quran is a miracle. Maybe this can be debunked here, or ideally with Dr. Marijn van Putten.
How can it be a miracle? I mean, the philosophy of language and languages are sort of developed for people to communicate and understand each other. So how can it be a miracle? If they're saying the poetic, it's beautiful. There is a challenge has been issued in the Quran, and that challenge comes in stages to people. If they can come up with a Quran like it, with 10 surahs and then a surah or like a word, or it's just like gradual challenge, and it's the most. I've done a full episode on it. It's the most ridiculous challenge you can ever come up with. It's like saying, this is a Shakespeare novel. Can you do better? I mean, it's purely subjective.
I think interview I did with Shadi Nasser, when I asked him, is it a miracle? And he's like, well, that's subjective. Like you're trying to say something is better than the others. You might like it. Was there other people who read it who didn't like it more? And is it a popularity vote? If most people like it, that proves it's what you're saying it is. Yeah, it's more of a subjective thing. And that's fine.
There's the verse about when God tortured people and he changes their skins. So the receptors, and that's the next miracle that we're going to talk about next part.
Okay.
And because they claim the pain receptors are on the skin. And it's supposed to look very beautiful and poetic, but it says he replaces the skin. So every time they die out of hellish torture, they can feel the pain again and die again and again and again forever. And this gets recited by a beautiful voice of somebody, and it's supposed to be very poetic. I don't care how beautiful the voice is. I don't care how poetic and they're using beautiful rhyming of the words. the context is absolutely abhorrent. It's disgusting. There's no beauty for me in there. It's ugly.
Thank you for that, Aaron. Mr. Morpheus said, please ask, where's the science in drinking camel urine in Hadith Sahih B. Bukhari? Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, it's Hadith number 5686, where the Prophet of Islam has, said drinking the milk and the urine of the camel can heal certain diseases. So it's authenticated Hadith in Muslim and Bukhari, and it's one that can cause a lot of trouble.
What is it actually trying to say? What is it?
It cures illnesses and ailments.
Oh, that's the idea in the Hadith, that they're thinking that this, but so obviously
it's obvious. Yeah. Unless you like a pint, of urine, camel urine.
Black Angels in the chat said, wow, how did people possibly know that we feel pain on the skin? Shocker. Thank you so much for that. All right, we're going to bring our next caller on, and I really appreciate everybody on the super chats. Thank you. Perfect Dawa, welcome back to MythVision. How are you, my friend? You're muted. Or something. I can't hear you. Chat, start praying. I think he's mute. Do you want to back out, come right back in and see if it works? Nobody's in line. Don't worry. I'll make sure you come right back on if you have to back out and come right back on. Let's see what he has to bring today. Yeah, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear us? Perfect Dawa?
You can hear me, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we can't hear you.
Something's up, man.
It's a miracle.
You're going to want to back out. I would leave and try and come back in and see. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Someone said, thank God he's muted.
There's a God after all.
Well, All right. Let's see. Someone, look, let's see how he responds. All right. So, Perfect Dawa, your audio, man. Test your audio. Go to the down settings. To the bottom left. Something's up with your settings. Make sure you get that right. So we'll talk until you can interrupt us, because we can't even hear anything you're saying at the moment. Henny, what do you think so far about the show, man? Are you enjoying it?
Oh, of course, and it's brilliant what you're doing, Derek. I mean, engaging people. It's not just academic and
yes.
Here we go.
Hallelujah. Yeah. Okay, what was that, man? Were you not plugged in?
Yes. Hi, Derek. Hi. Sorry, there was the microphone was there was a problem with the microphone. Thank you for having me. Yes,
yeah. What challenge are you bringing today?
Yeah, actually, I have little time, unfortunately, and I wish that it was another time and I could talk more. But as a converted Muslim, I would like to say that I mostly converted to Islam because of the rules that is going to guide us to a better world, teaching me to be a better human being, loving other people, helping other people. So I hope all these discussions that, this is not from God and so on, is not making us to not follow those beautiful commands, okay? So another thing is that as a former atheist, I started to realize that, because I learned about pagans, religion, that in their religion, we get reincarnated, and that reincarnation continues forever. And I had learned from science that there is an end to this world. There are different theories. And the Big Bang, the start of the universe. So I want to say
you got to get to a point and challenge something, my friend.
All right. No, I'm just saying that, first of all, what is it? Here, do you know, Henny, that no, I was going to say, first of all, Quran is not a science, book, but it's a book of rules and morality, okay, how we are going to live on this planet. But there are some scientific facts that Allah gives in Quran, so that to tell us that, look, this is not just, from a man. So I would like to ask you that how a man 1400 years ago knew that there was a beginning from in this for this universe. Chapter 21 verse 104 says, the day when we fold the heaven like the folding of a written sheet for the records, as we began the first creation. So as we began the first creation is the Big Bang. So we shall do it all over again. A promise binding upon us. Indeed, we will do it. So this verse tells us that the universe is going to be, recreated again and again, and this is called in science called pulsing theory, or the big. Big crunch also.
The big crunch and the big bounce. Okay, but do you know that these are not scientific knowledge? This is not fixed. It's a hypothesis.
No, there are three. I know that there are three different.
There are more than three.
Yeah, no, there are three. The big chill, the big rip, and the big crunch. Okay, so science believe that one of them is possible, and the one which will recreate the universe again and again is the big crunch, which is called also as
it's an infinite regress is possible as well, because time, when you get closer to the Big Bang itself, space, matter, and time, when you're getting closer, slows down so much that some scientists actually think it may never have actually a start. I don't know.
This is the area I was talking to Lawrence Krauss about and other physicists, and there are a lot of misunderstanding. We actually don't know if the Big Bang is the ultimate beginning. We know it was the beginning of our local universe. Whether it's the ultimate beginning, what happened? We say we don't know what happened before, because the word before doesn't mean anything, because space-time wasn't available then. But now scientists understand that the Big Bang does not have to be the ultimate beginning. It might be just the local beginning of our local universe. And if the multiverse hypothesis is true, or the bubble universe, we could be talking about this could be infinite singularities that happen all the time in a bubble isolated universes. And we could be living in one of those universes that are isolated from each other. So we don't know.
But the thing is that, first of all, that a man 1400 years ago, in those time that people, the highest knowledge was reading and writing. That was the highest knowledge, that he was talking about, the universe. And there are many other verses. Unfortunately, I don't have the time now because I have to finish. But anyway, for me, that somebody talk about such a thing, about universe in many, many different verses, and they match with today's science. Okay, for me, it's quite.
But it doesn't. That's the thing. It does not. It does not, and it also fills the other criteria of that knowledge was not unique. Every single creation myth either starts with the beginning of a universe.
Think about how difficult this is. I've actually posed this question to my brother years ago, and I said, he's like, man, there has to be a beginning and God had to create it and things like that. And I'm like, okay. And I was a believer at the time. So we were having a inside conversation. This wasn't a challenge. And I said, bro, think about our lives. We're born, meaning we have a start. We live, we die. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. To everything in our existence that we know has a start, middle, end. Just simple conversation. And I said, can you comprehend eternal? No, our minds were blown trying to think about it. We're like, whoa, that's very difficult to think about. How normal would it be to assume everything has a beginning since you have a beginning? That's not a hard leap. It doesn't take a miracle to make that assumption. And if science one day shows that we didn't, that would be the biggest pill to swallow. I would be shocked to find, all right, what ancient myths are we going to find that say something is everlasting? There is no beginning to creation or something like, I don't know. This gets into interpretation as well. Like,
yeah. Derek, sorry, my wife needs the computer. That's why she's
Uh-oh.
writing. Yeah, that
You're
I
going to
have
get in
go.
trouble.
Yes, that's why. I hope that it was another time I would have more time and
Call
talk to you.
back,
But
my
anyway,
friend.
yes. Another thing is, I just would like to say on Saturday on Modern Day Debate, I have a debate with David Wood. If you would like, you can watch it. I appreciate
Okay.
it very much. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, Perfect Dog. Well, have a
Thank
good one,
you.
my friend.
Thank you. Take
Okay.
care. Bye bye. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, he's such a kind guy too, and I think he gets a lot of crap from people, sometimes unnecessarily. But I get it; they're just kind of like, he's so nice, he's friendly, like you almost don't want to even argue. You know, you're like, okay,
No, yeah, no, I understand. But again, see that these are distortions of science. So that you take something that is it's not even mainstream, we don't even know, and saying, well, he talked about it, but every single creation myth has touched on either a cyclic universe. By the way, the closest religion to anything to do with cosmology, the closest religion is actually the Hinduism.
right.
The Hindu book is actually got the closest to cosmology as we know it.
We got another caller.
Sure.
All right, my friend is it Nazam? Welcome to MythVision. Correct me. How do I pronounce your name, my friend?
Nazam. You can
Nazam Gafoor.
Welcome, my friend. How did you have any challenge or questions or comments?
I was on about the discussion on the fiction. I'm actually a good friend of Paul Williams. I've known him for
awesome. Yeah, I'm friends with him too, actually, on Twitter and Facebook. We talk from time to time in Messenger, and but he won't interview with me. I said I don't want you to get in trouble with your fans. So anyway.
Well, maybe one of these days he can maybe come on your podcast.
You're breaking out, my friend. You're breaking out.
Sorry. I was just saying maybe I can encourage him to come on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not like pressuring him. You know, he's a friend of mine. I wouldn't want to. Maybe one day we'll find something that makes it worth it. So, did you have a challenge or a question, or did you want to correct something?
It's not so much a challenge. I just wanted to just make a comment on the crucifixion verse.
Okay.
So my view is that people may have erroneously believed in the death and even resurrection of Jesus, but that's not something that's being condemned in the Quran. But what's condemned is the rejection of Jesus. So the rejection of him being the messenger of God, the Messiah. Despite that, they crucify him.
Is it so? Let me clarify here. Is it that they're making him God? Is that really the condemnation, that they've made him divine?
Well, from the context of the verse, it's with regards to the history of the Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
It's about them, for example, accusing the mother of Mary, having a child out of wedlock, and then it goes on to say, like, them saying, that we crucified the Christ, the messenger of God. So it's in that context, it's more to do with the rejection of Jesus as the messenger of God,
right,
as well as them asking for signs.
So Nazam, what do you say then about the Quranic verses that clearly says kafar al-lazina, yani those who accepted Jesus as to be divine, they are considered to be infidels. They have disbelieved. That's quite explicit. Obviously, that's nothing to do with the crucifixion verse.
Right.
The verses that talks about Christians, those who took Jesus to be a god, are disbelievers. They are infidels.
Yeah. So the word infidel isn't used in the Quran. The word infidel was actually a Christian term that was used to refer, like during the Crusades, they used infidels to use that for Muslims. But the word that's used is, as you mentioned, kafara, and the word there means to cover or to conceal or hide the truth.
And may I add, deliberately. So it's somebody who knows the truth and they deliberately conceal it.
Yep, and despite the evidence presented to them, and they're convinced, but despite that, they still choose to reject it. But as you also correctly mentioned, it's a different set of group of people that are being referred to, and they're being condemned not because of their belief in the crucifixion of Jesus, but because of them worshiping Jesus instead of God alone.
Let me ask you this, Nazam, if I may. Is the passage saying that God did make it there is this evidence here in this passage that God is making it look like Jesus was crucified. So say that again.
That's an interpretation of the verse, but strictly speaking, the verse is in the passive tense, so it doesn't actually mention the doer of the action, and it could just simply be understood like through natural means, that it just simply appeared to them that Jesus was dead or that he was crucified. Doesn't necessarily.
But it says explicitly, وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنَ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ, and they have crucified him not. He was made to look like as if he was.
So who made him look?
God himself.
Well, that's where you would disagree, Nazam. You don't think that God made it look that way.
Of God in that particular verse, the only way, or the only place where God appears in that verse is when it says messenger of God. So they say we crucified Christ, the messenger of God. So God is only mentioned in that part of the verse, but then it goes on to say they didn't kill him nor crucify him, but it appeared to them. So some interpret it was made to appear to them so, whereas other translations has it seems so to, or it appeared to them.
You see, the subjective is omitted in the Quranic verse. So you have the objective, the object, which is the people who are witnessing the incident, and you've got the verb, and the subject is omitted. But the only logical conclusion you would get is that subject must be God.
Actually, that doesn't make sense grammatically, and this was actually pointed out by a classical commentator by the name of Zamakhshari, and he pointed another commentator points. The grammatical problem is saying that it was made to look like that Jesus was crucified. It's because he says if you look at the pronouns, all the pronouns refer back to Christ. So it's that Jesus wasn't crucified, nor was he wasn't killed, nor was he crucified, but it appeared, or he appeared to them. Whereas on the view that God made someone else look like Jesus, and that someone else was crucified, it doesn't make sense, because it's not Jesus who is being made to look like someone else, but in this view, it's someone else that is being made to look like Christ.
So may I, Nazam, this is a very fascinating point. I'm totally cool with this. In fact, I don't care where the evidence goes is where I'm interested in heading. So I appreciate you correcting this detail. This actually lines up more with my initial video. If I may show you, I'd like to get your opinion on. I've got quite... are you hearing all that noise too?
Yeah, I'm getting some feedback. All right. Yeah, I think Nazam, when you're not speaking, maybe if you can mute yourself.
I don't know if that's too hard, my friend. Okay.
We'll fix the problem.
Awesome. Let me pop this video up. This is my initial video, and I want to show it because this was my point when I was looking this up. Look, some people might think I'm the enemy. I get it. If it's your faith, you know, nobody likes to like have someone try to figure out what are the possible building blocks that made this evident. But this is what my initial video said, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts, and then I'd love your thoughts. Forgive me on that. Hold on. Here it is. Okay, so let me pop it up. Okay. Now I'm sharing my screen. All right, here we go. I think this is it. Okay, here it is. So playing it back. Not all Muslims think alike, just like not all Christians. Most Muslims believe Jesus was not actually crucified, but it looked or appeared as if he was crucified. My friend Paul Williams over at Blogging Theology does a lot of educational videos that Jesus didn't really get crucified, but it appeared as if he was. Now, where did this idea come from? This is why I do what I do, looking for the fingerprints. In the late 2nd century to 3rd century, there were Gnostic texts that were coming up that were equating Jesus and Thomas. There were also texts that had Simon of Cyrene, the figure who helped Jesus carry the cross, that he was the real person who was crucified. Let me read you a quote.
I was laughing at their ignorance when the crowd mistakenly crucifies Simon of Cyrene and asserting that this deception was made possible because I, Jesus, was altering my shapes, changing from form to form.
Are they getting this from Gnostic literature? The point is, does it require a revelatory figure named Gabriel in order to tell you this?
I mean, what kind of trick is it that you've made everyone think Jesus was crucified? An entire religion is made out of this idea, and 1.8 billion people on planet Earth believe it today.
What kind of trick is God playing? So just to comment on this, okay, maybe I am a bit polemical at the end when I say, what kind of trick is being played here? The reason why I brought that up is there are some Muslims that actually believe God causes these things to happen, and they will say that this might be God that's doing it. But the question I had for you, just a simple one, is if you're not a believer, like you pretend to be me for a moment, and you don't believe that this is true, like you literally believe the faith and the tradition, and you're looking for how they would come up with this idea that Jesus wasn't crucified, and you find literature, and it's not just one book, it's multiple pieces of literature before the Quran that's saying Jesus wasn't actually crucified. It looked, or even Jesus, in some of the texts, it says Jesus himself tricked them. So it wasn't even God necessarily, the Father. It was Jesus himself who tricked them to make it look like he was crucified. If I see all of that evidence, and then you get to the Quran in the 7th century, you could understand why someone like me would go, well, maybe they got this idea. Maybe someone had passed this oral tradition through the trade routes down there, and they heard this story somewhere, and they're definitely against Jesus being God. So they have a different way they're going to convey this information. Do you at least agree? Like, you at least see why I would come to a conclusion that maybe this is already something known?
Yeah, I'm actually sympathetic to that view, and I'm actually open-minded. I could see how.
Thank you.
I think where myself and you, Derek, would differ is that I'm saying that this is a particular interpretation, and this interpretation may have been influenced by Gnostic Christians, and not strictly speaking what the Quran itself says, because the Quran could also be understood to mean that simply Jesus swooned on the cross, that he just simply appeared to have died to the
Like the swoon theory?
I don't know if I can mention his name, but you've had a professor in the past.
Mention whoever.
Okay, Price, Robert Price.
Yeah.
So Robert Price has in his books like Deconstructing the Son of Man, and also this book he wrote called the Da Vinci Code Decoded, where he argues like from the Gospels themselves, there could be like a subtext or underlying text where Jesus actually survives the crucifixion.
Yeah, that's actually a serious theory by some, that he actually, do you think that's what's being conveyed here?
I think that's one of the possible meanings, amongst others, that could be understood. But whichever interpretation you take, this is something that doesn't make any difference to a person's afterlife, or it's not a salvific issue. Whether you believe Jesus was swooned on the cross, or even if you believe that Jesus died by crucifixion, it's not something that's salvific. But what is salvific is to believe in Jesus as the Messiah. And also, the Quranic Jesus isn't a Gnostic Jesus. So the Quranic Jesus is the prophet sent by God, who comes in line of many other Israelite prophets that came before him, and also to give glad tidings of another prophet or messenger to come after him. Whereas the Gnostic Jesus is someone who is like fully God, but who's in or is divine.
Yeah, and this is why I had Peter von Sievers on recently. I don't know if you watched that episode that we were talking about the origins of Islam, and he was trying to explain that if you look carefully in the Quran, you'll see that the Quran is going against some of the contemporary what is it called when they believe God died? Deicide. There are Christian doctrines that God died on the cross. I'm hearing bad noise. Is it bad, Hanny?
Yeah, I can hear it. Yeah.
Okay, it was just coming in bad, but that deicide, that God died, or the different types of Christianity, that it's responding to these other versions of Christianity in its time, which it makes me curious as someone who wants to historically try to understand these things. It makes me very curious as to what is the group, what is the people that are here, the people of the Quran in its initial phase, because Jews, for example, didn't really care to engage with Jesus. So it makes you have to imagine these are a different kind of group. I say that because there's some people want to argue that maybe it's a Jewish group, or these are certain Christian type groups. I'm interested in knowing, like, what is the historical data that builds up to why the Quran is responding to these versions of Christianity. And it made me think maybe there's a blend of ideas. Maybe the swoon theory combined with the idea that there are traditions out there that are being told orally, maybe, that are saying he didn't really die. It looked like he died. Don't know. I don't know what we can show, because we don't have very good evidence right there in the 620s and 30s other than the Quran to kind of support what's going on in the Quran. That's the problem. We don't have too much historical data.
And I don't know everything, so I just came on to speak about the crucifixion, the little that I know. So,
I appreciate you coming on. I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing that. I think it's tough for me because when I go to explain it, there's 18 other Muslims that disagree with you with a different take or whatever. That goes with the property. That's just how the thing goes. But so it's interesting to hear different ways.
Yep, and obviously, just because a few good men disagree with one another, it doesn't mean that we throw away the whole enterprise. But even even atheists disagree with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. But thank you. Yeah, did you have anything for Hanny? I've been hogging all the time.
I've been following your podcast for the past year, so I'm a follower, a fan. So yeah.
Thank you.
Found your interview with Dr. Siddiqui to be very interesting as well and beneficial.
With who?
Dr. Siddiqui on the Quran.
Siddiqui.
This was maybe 2-3 months ago.
Siddiqui. I'm so sorry. Haitham Siddiqui. Yes. I don't know. I didn't understand Siddiqui. Yeah. Dr. Haitham Siddiqui, smart. All of these people are smart, and I will be having Muslim scholars, some that I've been talking with as well, to have them on. I'm not interested in fundamentalist. I came out of that. I'm more interested in academic, scholarly, not apologetics. That's not my thing. So I try to stay clear of that. The only time I think apologetics are fun is when you're having conversations, like if someone were to call in and challenge, right? That might be fun. But as far as when I do an educational video, I'm not interested in that, Just like Paul's not. Paul Williams, he's not, he wants academic discussion, just like I do.
Yeah. Maybe one of these days, maybe meet at Speaker's Corner.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't mind. I know that a lot of yelling goes on out there too, though. So it's like, I'm not into all that,
But a mixture of different people. So,
yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Did you have anything else you wanted to give to Henny or?
No. Just also my condolences to you regarding your friend as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, his family. Most of all, in all of the situations. So, well, I thank you for your kindness. I really do. And I hope that we can have more conversations like this and show friendly, not like I win and you're wrong. Like, that isn't my goal. I don't want that to be my goal. I personally don't believe. I'm open. I'm very transparent that that's where I'm at. But, I do appreciate people who do believe, who are mature enough to have those conversations with me and respect my choice, just like I respect theirs, and Hanny as well. So,
thank you very much, Nizam. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
You take care.
Thank you, my friend. Let's talk again. Man, this has been Hanny, you didn't tell me this was going to be such a wonderful,
very civil so far.
I love it, man. Like this
I
is
think
good.
I'm hoping the world is coming to realization that we're talking about things that happened way in the past and we can't really be sure. So why just have a coffee and have a conversation?
I'm very impressed with the conversations we've had with people. I hope the audience is as well, even if you disagree and, we kind of get into our little tribe and we go, I think he's wrong and I don't believe it. Or I do believe it. And Derek, you're wrong. And I can't wait to show you why you're wrong or whatever. Cool. I get it. But if it's friendly, that's what I want. I want friendly disagreements and things like that. And like show why people are wrong. I'm not interested in attacking and all that kind of crap. And I hope more people head that direction. I want more people to be able to have these conversations.
Well, and I got to say something. Like when I first saw Nizam, and he does look like a typical Muslim, and this is the sort of guy that people will be standing in front of in a bus stop, and they'd be a bit wary.
Right.
And he speaks very, very softly. He's very interested in other religions, and he's interested in the Jesus narrative. He read Robert Price's books and everything, and suddenly you have this completely different person that doesn't almost match the stereotype of the person. And it's so people, please do not judge people. And you might have a cleanly shaven guy who looks absolutely brilliant, and he could have a terrorist with him. So be careful.
Don't have prejudice. Try not to have your prejudice, and that's a very good point you bring up, Hanny. Let's get these super chats, my friend. Osri Schizophrenia, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Derek, I want to say that I believe that mountain is a metaphor for something. For example, secrets or a place to conceal behind it. So that may be the case. I wrote them back. I said, maybe. I'm not familiar with the Quran's use of terms like mountain. It might just mean mountain. It might have something else. Sometimes there are other words that describe things like feet.
So the mountains are referenced twice in two different contexts. One is to anchor the earth so it would not shake, so it's against earthquakes, and the other one was to stabilize the earth crust, and it's almost like the pigs and the stakes for a tent. To erect things above them, which is going to be referenced to the sky later on, and the pillars. So and both are scientifically inaccurate. That it's just plain straightforward. They're scientifically inaccurate. They don't do what they're supposed to be doing as per the Quran's claim or understanding of a claim, because these were understood. Remember, these were understood way later and re-explained and rehashed to suit the current narratives. The ancient people understood them to be different things, and some people don't even see them as scientific marks. They're just poetic interpretation of God's beautiful creations and things like that.
Yeah, I kind of wonder how, because not all Muslims think the same way about things, and you being an ex-Muslim, this all too well. Speaking to people all the time in the world. How many are willing to say, okay, this is ancient cosmology. It's what they understood at the time, but they're like past that. They don't care that this is not scientifically accurate. I wonder how many Muslims actually are willing to do that, because I think the apologetics, like people who want to push apologetics to prove that they're having a major impact on the younger crowds that come out, like what we see in Christian apologetics, where whatever, they're trying to prove the Bible. I wonder.
But the problem is with Islam is slightly different. When you put Islam in the context of this is the final message of God to the universe, and it's completely outdated like that, you're eager for an update, and that's why the Baha'i faith is an offshoot of Islam comes along to say, hey, hold on a second. Muhammad wasn't the last prophet. There are more prophets to come. Joseph Smith could actually fit that narrative as a recent prophet, the Latter-day Saints,
Right. Yeah, and imagine if we're still around in 1,000 years from now, what we might know. What are we going to do? Still hold on to something from the first century? Mrs. and Mr. Christian, or the 6th century to my
They're
Muslim
going to see
friends.
us as savages. They're going to see us as complete savages and completely awkward. What we are saying right now is going to be
Right
completely
now.
obsolete science to them. And they say, I can't believe these guys used to slaughter animals and eat them and crazy stuff like that.
Right.
You know?
I was
Because
thinking about that.
Oh, it's going to change.
I also use the example of the way that we rehabilitate people by throwing them in jail. By then, I hope our psychology and our science and understanding the behavior of humans has developed to a point where we know how to rehabilitate people who might be criminals or active, not going along with society. And we find a way, rather than locking them up or cutting their hand off if they steal or killing them, whatever it might be, in whatever society, we now know how to do things better. You see what I'm trying to get at?
But yeah, and imagine scanning brains at the age of 2 or 3 years old to see if there is going to be a future person who would cause problems because of chemical imbalances and stuff like that. And if you reset the electricity in the brain, you might end up with a person who can make better choices. But then that's another ethical territory we're going to head towards, and this is going to be very dicey.
Yeah, it is going to be dicey. Thank you so much, Osri. Aaron Johnson, thoughts? The only miracle is 1.6 billion people believe in the Quran, or that the Quran is a miracle. Even Muslim scholars who know Arabic ignore grammatical error Quran.
Yeah, you see, that's another issue, but this one I actually don't entertain very much. Those who would say there are actually some grammatical errors in the Quran. I don't care about these too much because there are counterclaims that grammar started with the writing of the Quran.
Right.
Quran is the reason why we have Arabic grammar to start with. I think it's futile because I think I don't care about what words are made of. I care about what do they mean, and the consequences of that meaning.
Right.
Are people going to lose their heads because of an understanding of a word? I don't care about the ontology of the word. Words don't have ontology. Words have meanings assigned to them, and they change over time. The word gay in 1950 was uttered in the sense of hello, have a gay day, and now has a completely different understanding, and words would change. So I don't care about that too much. I care about what do they mean and the consequences of what they mean.
I will say this, Marijn van Putten, Professor van Putten, I talked to him, and he says one of the problems with trying to act like there are initial errors in the Quran about the language is that we don't know if that is an error or not. And sometimes a word is actually different it means the same thing and it's different in a different context in the Quran. So to say that is we don't have enough literature floating around.
There isn't a point of reference.
Exactly the point he's trying to say.
Quran is the point of reference, unfortunately. So, yeah, and I saw it's a weak area of trying to critique the Quran. I would not touch that. But people do believe the Quran itself is a miracle, like in the book.
Right.
They believe it was written before the creation of man, of all men, of Muhammad and Jesus. So
that's why we had the oldest language that that guy was saying. So.
It's akin to the Logos idea.
Okay. Makes sense where the idea would come from. So something has already been passed down. Aaron Johnson, thank you so much. Can Silam expound on the miracle claims of embryology and mountain pegs, and please deal with the Arabic words for pegs or clinging clot?
Okay, so we've gone through this before in embryology, but the stages of the fetus, as per the Quran, it is in no way match of the scientific understanding right now. They are approximation, and as we said before, why is this supposed to be a miracle? People have lost babies, and abortions used to happen, and you would have been able to examine babies and fetuses in different stages and see how they look like empirically, and they were actually written down. And the Galen has sort of written books about it. We're talking about clearly 2 or 3 centuries before Islam, and hundreds of years even before Galen. Other people talked about it. It was a common knowledge. It wasn't too much of a problem, but even that knowledge was incorrect. As we said, the final stage is incorrect, where the bones are formed and then the flesh comes cover the bones, that is incorrect. That's not proper science. So that's completely debunked. In terms of the pegs, these are the stakes, which is the underneath of the mountains. There are bits that anchor. It's almost like an iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg, and you get the bottom bit, almost like the roots of the mountains, and they're supposed to be anchoring the earth crust. And again, that is incorrect. Mountains are a byproduct of the tectonic plates moving and colliding, and therefore, when they collide, they create the rising bit and the bottom bit, and they're not there for any reason. They serve no purpose.
Thank you for that. I'd love to get some images maybe later on in a different episode to kind of show maybe some backing.
Yeah, next time I'll prepare stuff with the actual images of the mountains and how they look like. And
right.
Yeah.
Mr. Morpheus, thank you for the super chat, my friend. Quran 3:7 says, there are verses none knows its meaning except Allah, and those who are firmly rooted in knowledge say, we believe in it. It is all from our Lord. They just believe. So they don't know the meaning of it. They just believe it. Or whatever.
And that is exactly what faith is about. Isn't faith that's the definition of it. It's you believe in something without evidence. If there is evidence for it, it's no longer called faith. It's called epistemology or something else. If you're gonna provide evidence for a belief and it's justified true belief, then well done. You've just achieved epistemology, because that's what knowledge is explained. It's justified true belief.
I must take this right here, right? So you're going to hear conflict come back from that definition. I know this because the Christian apologists do this all the time. When you go to Hebrews 11, and this is like the chapter on faith, where you're going to hear a list of all these people that God promises things to, there's no evidence in the real world around them that this is going to happen. I mean, Sarah's 99 years old. She's told she's going to have a child. She laughs about it. The evidence is contrary to what is supposed to happen. That's faith. And when you see that definition played out, it's the apologist that want to redefine faith to be, oh, it's evidence-based. No, it's evidence-based now that you've watched 20 other stories about miracles that have happened. But technically, even then, looking and observing around you, there's no evidence to say these things will happen. And I'm not speaking for the Quran. I'm speaking specifically for Christian apologetics, but it might relate to some degree. So they're having faith that God's going to keep his promises, or a healing's going to come, or whatever it might be. It is not based on we have actual evidence. The only evidence they would have is the stories at this time. So.
That betrays a psychological discomfort. It's innate in humans. We want evidence, even if we don't tell that to ourselves. I don't think pure faith does not exist. We all want to be sure, one way or another. And we can actually deceive, our brains would deceive us to see things that we're not seeing, just to give ourselves that sort of extra piece of comfort. Yeah. We all want evidence.
Well, that gets condemned in the New Testament over and over. They ask for a sign. Only an adulterous generation asks for a sign, and he condemns them. Only the sign of Jonah will be given. That's only in Matthew. But in Mark, he doesn't even give the sign of Jonah. And they're condemned, but they're praised when they don't need evidence, like in Gospel of John, when Thomas needs to see the Lord and feel him to know it's true, and it's just a story. Yeah. And they're convincing you, blessed are those who don't see yet still believe. Like, that is the definition of faith, and that is evident in that way. Does the Quran have condemnation of people who require more evidence?
I was going to say that Abraham himself. Abraham. I mean, that's the dudes. He was talking to God. He's talking to him. And he said, can you show me more evidence? And he said, I'm talking to you. Why do you need evidence? He goes, well, so my heart would be comforted by extra evidence. So he gives them that classic, I think it was either 4 or 10 birds, I forget, and ripped them into pieces. And he said, well, I'm going to bring them back to life. And he does that in front of them. So it's, again, it's questioning God's justice. Some people are given way more evidence. Paul, the road to Damascus, the person experience, and some people like you and I are begging for something for it to appear, and there's absolutely nothing. It's like, no, you got to believe without evidence. But no, the people were asking for evidence all the time, even the prophets themselves.
Thank you for that, Mr. Morpheus. Great super chat. Chris Harris, and then we're going to get our caller. Don't go anywhere, friendly Muslim. I'm coming. Chris Harris, a perfect God sent Jesus, not realizing he would confuse people into believing he was God, then had to send another prophet to clarify, not realizing the conflict that would create. Mistake or malice? I mean, this is the point I was trying to make. In the one passage, our friend we had on, is it Nazam? I hope I'm saying it right. Hazam? I can't remember exactly how to pronounce his name, but
Nazam.
Yeah, that particular passage, he could be 100% correct on interpreting that. The problem is, it's like, why did they run with this interpretation? Why did this end up becoming what Christianity became? And, you know, more people on earth, if you were to compare religions wise, like, it's the number one most popular religion out there. People are leaving it by the boatloads, but nonetheless, it's like so many people believe this. What the heck happened? Did God like completely let human affairs do its own thing? And then is that an excuse to say, well, we don't want like God to be at fault for like having so many people actually sincerely, really good people believe Jesus was God and died on the cross or came down? He's part of the Trinity, whatever. I know it's illogical, but nonetheless, it's like all of these things. Why didn't that get corrected? Why aren't they? Why not work harder at convincing people? If this is the universal message, just get the whole world on the same page. What's the point, right?
For me, there are two possibilities and not a third. Either God doesn't exist, and they will be completely explained by people who are trying to do their best to understand things around them, and they're a bit, they believe in miracles and superstitions, and that will be completely understood. Or there is a God who is an evil one, a benevolent God in that context, who is has all the power, has all the knowledge, is everywhere, has got all the love, does not compute to the conversation we're having right now. If there is a God, he's got to be an evil one.
Thank you for that, Chris.
And I won't call him a God. I would call him an evil creator rather, than he won't be a God at this point.
Yeah, I got a book called that right back here. Anyway, it's called The Evil Creator. M. David Litwell wrote.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, literally. I'll grab it. You tempted me. Where's it at? Hiding underneath all the other books.
There we go.
So it's a very interesting book. Constellation Pegasus, what word is used to replace philosophy? This is our last one, then we'll take our caller, and then we'll wrap things up for the show. What word is used to replace philosophy in Arab high school science books? How can philosophy not exist? I don't think you were trying to or you might be muted, by the way. I don't think you were trying to say that you can't convey the idea with multiple words. You're pointing out how language evolves. That was your point, right?
Exactly right. You can't come up with the words, but then he was claiming that the language has not changed for millennia, as if it's a nice feature. And I was saying, no, that's a bug. A good language that sort of moves with the time, and it changes and renews itself. That's not a good thing for a language not to change. It's a horrible thing.
What would, if we were back in 630s, all right, and out of nowhere, let's say we could pop a car up. We said, hey, this is a vehicle that drives. It's not an animal, okay? And it can go to 120 miles per hour. People use it in sports, et cetera, whatever. Would there be a new word invented? Would Muhammad at that point go, you know what, we need to figure out what we're going to name this in his own language? It makes you kind of wonder, I don't even think that if we went back in time, a lot of these figures we talk about from Jesus, Moses, well, I don't think Moses actually existed, but nonetheless, if there was a guy, they would not be using these arguments that we're hearing being done today, is my point. I don't think they thought this way in the time that they were writing or existed.
So you see, language matches cultures. If a culture is about to die because it's not innovating, it's not contributing anything to the world around it, it's not doing anything to provide for its existence, its language will die, and its culture will disappear. And that's happened many times over. Language is a reflection of your culture. and innovations, and a flourishing language, a simple language. That's why English is now one of the better languages of the world, and there's the lingua franca. There's always a lingua franca that is dominant, and it's a language that is easy to understand. It's got enough vocabulary to express oneself. It used to be Latin at some point, it was Greek at some point, it was French at some point, it was German at some point, and now it's English because it's an easy language. It's a language of business. It's a language that very flexible to introduce new words at a whim, and that's what's required. But for a language to stay put and be very proud of its heritage, for example, the Hebrew spoken right now in Israel is very different than the ancient Hebrew. It's actually evolved way beyond that. So
no, you're right. Same with Greek. Go to Greece right now. You're going to find out it isn't Koine. It's very different. The way the dialect, everything's changed. One more super chat. Sorry, Mr. Morpheus. Thank you. Okay, last one. Why do they say the Quran is a miracle when Surah 1759 says we refrain from sending signs, miracles, only because the men of former generations treated them as false?
That's a funny one. This was on the back of Muhammad being attacked by the Qurayshi tribes and saying, bloody hell, you're saying you're a prophet, show us the trick, dude. And there was nothing forthcoming, and saying, no, hold on, we've got a good one for you. You've killed every other prophet who showed you something, so I'm not falling for that mistake.
I definitely want to look into this, because if it isn't pro miracle, is it the hadith that's impacting the later? Like, hey, we need to root this stuff in some type of miraculous claim. Makes you wonder.
Well, every holy text has one thing and its opposite, and it depends what you're going to. There are actually other parts of the Quran that would actually say there are miracles, and hadith has supported Muhammad perform miracles. We have the Isra and Miraj, where he actually was taken to the Aqsa Mosque overnight, and then to the seventh heaven. And this is where he had a word with God, and the Islamic prayer started with 50 prayers per day. 50 prayers per day. But then he went down and he met Moses. And I'll make fun. I'll have a joke with my Jewish friends in the chat. I figure Robert Herring and a couple of other people here, and met Moses. And Moses said, no, mate, you got to go up again, and you got to haggle. 50 is going to be too much. This is actually true. Well, it's like according to and he goes and they become 40, 30, and he keeps going up and down. And Moses keeps, no, keep going back to him and tell him to reduce the number of prayers until we got to 5 prayers per day. But they started at 50.
That sounds like a Jewish thing for sure.
Yeah, he taught Muhammad how to haggle, probably.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you so much, Mr. Morpheus. I'm having fun. All right, so we've got one more caller, guys. We're getting close. I mean, we're getting close to 3 hours. I really want to do these again. I hope we have more callers jump on sooner. And what I'll say right now before we take on our final caller is this. There's 3 other people in the chat after this caller. I won't be able to take your call today. We've gone so long, but if you will jump on the live sooner next time, I won't spend as much time with single individuals. We'll push to the next caller sooner. But it's been a great day, and I hope everybody continues to have a good one. Friendly Muslim, welcome back to MythVision.
I heard the words coming out of your mouth, Derek. You said friendly and you said Muslim in the same sentence. I thought you were calling for me. So here I am.
Well, I always enjoy you. So what do you have for us today, my friend?
Well, quick one, because you got to go and stuff like that. I was expecting 13 miracles and scientific miracles happening today. So I was just thinking for the next stream, or in preparation of it, either they're listed on your post, like, look, we're going to go through these, and then maybe we can have something prepared, because it's really difficult when you don't know. I mean, you got to debunk a miracle. I need a bit of time,
Fair enough. Good call, actually. Fair enough. Very good call.
And to be honest with you, I've been doing so much with like organizing for this show and that show and getting prepped. It went past me, but that's a great criticism. I need to put this in the description, even of this video, so anyone who's wanting to maybe before they go 2.5 hours, they might want to know what is going to get discussed.
I'm looking at some of the miracles and I'm like, okay, fine. Well, there's this paper, but I can't share that on screen. I don't know, copyright issues or a video that's on it, and it may counter what my friend here is saying. So maybe, or second thought is, all right, fine, you do your next stream, And then after that, we kind of arranged for, all right, let's counteract these 13, and we've got something to concentrate on, because that might be a better way of doing it.
I will definitely do that. My question to you is: are you convinced by this apologetic, or are you one of the ones who are like, look, I don't use the Quran as evidence for science or proof that God knew something 1400 years ago? Where do you stand?
Right now, as of today, I'm kind of in the middle, because I was involved in a discussion, and they were talking about a book of science versus a book of science, and where were the first claims of the scientific miracles. And then to counter even that argument, there are legitimate scientists who I was actually looking for him while you were talking, on a video I saw, and he's actually a proper scientist and goes through academic research and does comparative to the Quran. And so he's a big deal. He's a qualified scientist, not sort of a polemist or an apologist. So I was trying to find him also. So there's two other guys I've got in mind.
And I'd like you to send me, if you don't mind emailing
me.
Just send me the links, because I'm curious. I was just reading an article on the particular gentleman that had scientists come over, and he kind of swindled them into sitting down at a table. Hey, let's bring the family, butter them up, give them gifts, things like that, convince them, give them money, pay them, all of these things. And then they come out going, this wasn't like, hey, we just want to hear what real science says on this. It's, let me read a verse to you and then convince you, even when you deny it or try to find alternate explanations. None of those were convincing, of course, the Muslim that was bringing them over, but they kept pressuring to get them to be convinced that no, this is true, and we need to find a way that it is. And until we get someone to say it is, we're not stopping. That's what it seemed like in the article. I can actually post that if you would like. Wall Street Journal article that is literally Western scholars play key role in touting science of the Quran. And there are multiple scientists that are involved in this that felt, the guy was super nice, but very pressuring on trying to get them to nod yes and go along with it. One of the guys even says in quotes after, like, he took me out of context, and they recorded the whole thing. And you kind of wonder how much.
And I just would like to add one thing, if you don't mind, and also issuing a book at the end of an endeavor. This is not a work of science. This is a work of literature. A Brief History of Time by Hawking isn't a scientific paper. It's a commercial work. So if somebody's going to King Saud or King Fahd in Saudi Arabia, and at the end of it issue a book, that is not science. It needs to be a scientific paper. It needs to be peer-reviewed, and it needs to have scientific consensus at some point to raise into the realm of proper science. Other than that, it's just commercial and personal opinion.
But yeah, any final words from you, my friend?
And no. I mean, the guy that I'll find him out. I've got to dig out, because he was they had an Arabic speaker, a linguist, and they were sort of going through things. And he was very honest. He said, look, sometimes people are taking things that aren't scientific miracles and blowing them out of proportion. And when you do have legitimate comparisons from real science, then they're being ignored and not taken seriously. So he is definitely somebody I will look into. But yeah, I just wanted to make a suggestion on a follow-up stream or having all the information ahead of time so we can actually prepare for it. If
I'll tell you, I have a friend of mine who, when I point out all of these dubious, miraculous claims from Christian churches and such throughout the centuries, he'll go, okay, I grant there's a lot of fraud and there's a lot of hocus pocus and they're making stuff up, but that doesn't mean all of them are not, there might be a miracle in somewhere in all of these situations. So I'm interested to hear the evidence. Oftentimes what ends up happening is we just don't know. And so when it becomes I don't know, and we don't have an explanation because there's no other criteria to really test it or whatever, see, if there's a will, there's a way. It's a miracle.
Remember one thing here: there might be. It's not a miracle. It has to be a scientific fact. So if there is something that's been prophesied in the Quran and end up being a scientific fact, that could be coincidental, and it still doesn't mean it's from God, and it can mean based on observation, and that observation happened to be accurate. But remember, this is a claim coming from the divine creator of the universe, which means one mistake in the allegation makes the whole thing void.
Unless you don't tout that the entire book is divine or something. That would be the only other thing I can imagine.
Partially divine.
Right. There are Christians who held to the idea that, or still did, like me, absolute inerrant infallibility of the Bible. Then their whole world comes tumbling down. This guy right here, when he realizes, oh snap, I was wrong.
But you see, Derek,
yeah.
the Quran makes an outrageous claim. The words of the Quran are completely authored and composed by God himself, and not a word has changed since the beginning of time. These were not inspiration given to people, and they were reflected upon them by people who wrote them. These are direct revelations of God himself.
Oh,
Well,
quick 2 points, and I'll leave it there. Brother Nizam is a well-respected brother in the Dawah scene. Also, I mean, he's on the Dawah channels. He's been around
very
for
nice
a few
guy.
years. Very knowledgeable brother. So I'm actually glad that he came in, and I'm with him on the sort of swoon theory. I've always been of the swoon theory. I think that's more plausible in certain cases.
I think it's more plausible than a resurrection all day long. So
say love you, my friends. All right, I'll let you go. Have a good rest of the day, and take care.
thank you, my friendly Muslim. I look forward to talking again. Before we go, I saw a question kind of comment that I thought's necessary for you and I to answer. Are you down with that, Hanny?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Everybody in the queue, we will definitely take your call next time. Please call in. I want to have these conversations. These are fun, and I hope everybody in the chat's enjoyed them. Here is the chat comment. Tinkle Tink, thank you for the comment. For a non-believer, why is Derek looking at religion 24/7? Okay. I want to put your name in there, right? Why is Hanny looking at religion 24/7, right? It's not all I look at. It's not all I do. It's definitely a major part of what I do. And for me, it's because I'm actually fascinated. If you asked yesterday during my live stream, if you asked Erica Gutsit Gibbon, why is this girl interested in the anthropology and evolution of hominid species? Why is she into that? Why is she so interested in knowing the history of our evolutionary history in the world we live in, how we came to be the where we are? And the reason I mention her in that is that I see religion as part of our evolutionary process. It was a magic trick that I believed in. I believed in it just like David Blaine convinces people he has real magical powers. Then someone said, hey, you want to come see the trick behind the curtain? Let me show you things you're never going to hear at church. They're never going to tell you because they can't. And maybe they don't even know it. But let me show you some stuff. And I started looking at things. And when I did, it blew my mind that this had me clawed so deep that I thought the end of the world was coming. I had guilt that I had brought a child into this world, that he was going to have to live through the final days where God is going to burn up the earth. All of these things, I believed I was going to cook in hell if I wasn't righteous, or for whatever I wasn't chosen by God, I wasn't obedient enough, something went wrong, whatever it might be. I was so deeply impacted and affected that now that I have found out that this is a man thing, that we have created these concepts and observations in the natural world around us and from our own experiences, etc., I am a bit obsessed with trying to understand why we got here. Why did we end up believing in these things? Why do we love stories? And this is kind of in that scientific anthropological approach. Why do people believe in gods? What did they mistake a star that flew across the sky, or a comet, or that because certain celestial signs move differently in the sky, and they thought, man, that's got to be God, or that Venus rises every time it's spring, and they're going, that God we call Venus, that morning star or whatever, brought life to planet Earth, because every time it comes up, so does green and life and fertility. I mean, I'm just making the point. I'm obsessed with this stuff because, first of all, most of the world believes in something. Most of the world, most humans believe in some type of religious, cultural background. And so I love learning about this stuff. So if you think there's other motives behind it, you would fall right into the line of an apologist who thinks that Derek secretly knows that God is real, and come on, no, not at all. So I want your response rather than me rambling.
I remember it was a very, I'm not sure you've seen this before, but Christopher Hitchens was asked the same question once before, and I loved his response. And you've actually, I don't know if you've watched it before, but you've spoken almost like him in so many different ways. But to me, first of all, I don't speak about religion all the time. It's actually, on my channel, it's about 10 to 15% maybe of the contents. The rest are pretty much science, philosophy, psychology. I care about it because it affects a lot of people. I would probably want to take the harsh bits and pieces of it. I'd be very happy of a watered down Islam or Christianity that is in the hearts, that makes people go to the mosque or the church and hold hands and sing and feel happy and feel good about their fellow humans. But I would prefer a version of humanity where their beliefs are closer to reality. Matches the closer you believe matches reality, the better the outcome is for everyone, because it's going to be, your actions going to be predicated on knowledge, logic, and you're going to end up doing great things. They might not improve your morality. We're going to need to have another conversation. Science is not concerned with that. That's when you're going to need philosophy and ethics for that. But these are different conversations. But they're all void from the supernatural. I think the human condition, we struggle together. We're here alone. We only have each other, and we're gonna have to solve our problems our own. We just need to grow up and face up to our problems all by ourselves, and get away from the supernatural, because it's never really helped us.
I'm with you. So there's many reasons it's become more important in my life, even than when I was a religious person, finding out how this tribalism divides us. There are groups today, from white supremacists to various different groups, you name it. They're special, others aren't. They're chosen, others aren't. Well, science is going to debunk the supremacy concept that somehow Caucasians, like yesterday, that seemed that was the point of Robert Seffer. Yeah, science destroys that idea that, well, we came from a different stem and they're from much more primitive versions. Get out of here. Aliens and gods came down and made us, but not you. Shut up. I'm tired of that. I'm sick of the harmful ideas that come out of people's mouths like that. But when it comes to other traditional views, like, there's a lot of misogyny. There's a lot of sexist views. There are a lot of things that are just, we're past that, or we should be trying to get past that. So there's a lot of motivation on my part to give people what is really being said. That alone usually gets people blown away. Like, I was blown away when I found out what a lot of these original context meant. What? You mean to tell me that's not the Trinity in Genesis 1? It's a council of gods? Plural? Oh, snap. We're in trouble. We got a problem on our hands. And then interpretation. I love finding out all of that stuff. So most people who are skeptics like me aren't into the theological interpretive models and finding out who, what, when, where, and how they interpreted, how they understood it. I do. I like getting into the nerdy details because, hey, you can contend. You can have a conversation with someone who is sophisticated and they're in the bubble. Yeah. There's just a lot of reasons why I love doing this.
That's why I'm not an anti-theist. I'm content that religion served a certain extremely good purpose. It actually was very helpful. It helped us to unite around a common idea.
Right.
And that's brilliant. We have not evolved to know the truth. We have evolved to survive. And if an idea, even though it's not true, would help you survive as a group, then it's very benefit. That's why religion is prevalent. It stays. It's very strong. It does certain things that secular ideas cannot do. If you go to somebody's a funeral and they just lost a 3-year-old baby, us atheists will struggle. We'll mumble. We wouldn't have anything to say, and we're gonna have to develop a language to console each other. But that's why religion has been very strong for quite some time, and we're going to need to replace that. But it's time to let go. It's like that fastidious tail or the wisdom teeth that we no longer need. They're going to go. Evolution is going to take them away, and so are the memes that we no longer need.
Well, I really do appreciate everybody that came on today. Everybody's super chats, all the love, and you name it. I can't tell you how I appreciate it. Hanny, thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much.
You know, giving your arguments and hanging out with callers. Let's do this again. I hope that we can. I hope everybody who called in felt comfortable. Of course, even we disagreed, like they thought that I'm hosting fairly and being nice. So that's my goal. Like, I want to be a good person. It's more than being right. It's also about getting along with my fellow man and enjoying what I do. So thank you. Any final words from you?
No, Derek, you wonderful channel, wonderful contents. I mean, the variation of late as well. I'm very, very impressed. You know, you're now mingling science and a bit of philosophy and a bit of religion. It's wonderful stuff. I mean, I'm going to urge anybody's watching me from my channel. This is the place to be at the moment. The number of academics are about to turn up on your channel, and you do a wonderful job. You're such a good host, and you know how to grab the information and present them in an easy way.
Thank you so much. I'm a little envious of the colors in the background that you have. You really do kick butt on that background, man. I got to step my game up, man. I got, you know, little neon lights. But everybody, go subscribe to his channel. I will post this in the chat again for everybody who's tuned in. If you haven't done so, please consider going there. He has a lot of great stuff, lots of science. You also speak Arabic, and so most of your shows, from what I could tell, you're also doing a lot more in English now, but most of your shows have been in Arabic, correct? Yeah.
I'm trying to mix them up now. So I was born sort of bilingual, Egyptian father, Irish mother. So I do want to cover both areas, but I want to do a balanced sort of shows going forward.
Well, I just commented the YouTube channel. Thank you, Doc Pleroma, for that. He says, awesome, guys, fascinating. And also, he has a Patreon. You can go and follow him on his Patreon. I have a Patreon. Please consider helping us out so we can keep doing this. I love you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Weekend's coming up. I told everybody I'm taking weekends off, but this weekend I'm hosting a debate on the authorship of Isaiah. First of all, who wrote it, right? Is it multiple authors in the book, in the Bible? Dr. Kip Davis and Matthew Gronger. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. I got to take a look at that. And then there's Jonathan Sheffield and a girl named Emma that'll be joining. They believe that Isaiah actually prophesied the king Cyrus the Great, while the other academics say no, and they're going to get into this deep on Saturday. I don't usually work weekends now. Told my wife and my family I'm going to start taking off, but this one I already had scheduled for months, and we're going to be making it happen this Saturday. So I hope to see you there.
Enjoy the weekend, everyone.
You too, and never forget, we are MythVision.
Don't any of you have the guts to play for blood?
I'm your huckleberry. That's just my game.